Greetings and good afternoon, fellows of the Astrolabe. Astrolabians, unite! You are watching the Astrolabe, brought to you by King Pilled. This is the latest that we've ever started, and pretty soon this is going to be your favorite overnight morning show. In this case, though, it was actually, I have to blame, all the jokes are going in the chat. I have to blame a random username from, well, actually, the OG random username. We have two random usernames in the King Pill Discord, but I have to blame the OG random username for this one because I was complaining about all the tabs that I have open. And he said, well, you should try the vertical tab stacker in Vivaldi. And so I downloaded Vivaldi and I took a look at it and I was like, holy crap, this is what I want to use as my main browser. I've been using Chrome reluctantly because it's just kind of convenient, and Safari does not integrate with Restream well. You can't share tab audio. Totally kills the whole point of the Astrolabe. And Vivaldi, on the other hand, seems to work great. Presumably, you guys are replying to stuff that I'm saying, so you can hear me. So the audio's working. I don't really have any way to test that apart from just going live. And I'm gonna share some tabs here with some video, but I don't see any reason why they shouldn't play. Everything looked good on my end. So if everything doesn't play, fuck. I mean, I don't know. Let's not think that way. Let's not even consider the possibility. Do me a favor and hit the like button on your way in. Got some. I think I had 49 tabs. I dropped a few of them off because I decided to hold off until later on. They didn't cleanly fit into the categories here. But I have got a lot of tabs. Some of them are going to be kind of quick to get through. Some of them are not, because some of them are videos. It is a fantastic video thing that's going on Twitter right now. Why am I mirrored horizontally? I just realized that I am. I knew something seemed weird. I am mirrored horizontally. Apparently that's something that changed. Let me see if I can, might be able to do this. Yeah, here we go. How odd. It was weirding me out. Thank you for pointing that out. Something was off, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Estock says, use Brave. It also has vertical tabs, but also has built-in ad blocker and will reward you with crypto for using it. I've considered using Brave. The one downside is I've seen it be really glitchy with Restream. And I'm using Restream for now. I know I need to move over to OBS. I've got enough learning curves right now. I don't need another one. Shout out to Cordy ZZ7 with $5 Canadian. He says, be a real dissident and only keep the 5 most important tabs open. If you only have 5 tabs open on your computer, I'm going to assume that you're a sociopath. That will weird me out. If you only have 5 at a given time, I don't think I have any fewer than, I don't know, 30. And that's after I've rigorously bookmarked a bunch of others to not keep them open. I am a mass tab opener. Let's see here. Anything to update you guys on? If you're not in the King Pill Discord, you're missing out, because we had a great schizo stream on Friday night, watching the next 2 episodes of the Tucker Carlson documentary, which is just so good. It's so good. Production quality is great, and I mean, it's just like being able to see behind the scenes on stuff, even if it's curated. Like, obviously it's curated, it's edited. They're only certain stuff's going to be approved, yada yada yada. But I just love seeing behind the scenes on stuff. And in this particular case, like seeing behind the scenes of the Trump campaign, one of the episodes we just watched has a whole sequence of during the Kamala acceptance speech at the DNC, the whole team of them all sitting in there crafting tweets in real time, tweets and truths, crafting truths. And you get to see like how the sausage is made. Trump is not the one actually physically typing out his tweets, but he's sitting there dictating them. And the whole team is all pitching in, and different people are on phones. And this one chick, he has a remarkable number of stunningly gorgeous women walking around with him all the time. And it's not a mistake. He has this chick who's sitting there. Her job, she's on the keyboard, typing everything out. He's dictating it to her, and then they're like adjusting phrases in real time. Tulsi Gabbard is sitting there with them doing this. Matt Gaetz. You kind of get to see the different roles that people are playing, and you kind of get a feel for how they relate to one another. And so they're doing this I don't know, like a war room tweet reaction session to the debate while it's happening, or sorry, the speech while it's happening. And they're also saying, this is how you would respond to this in a debate. This is probably what they would say. It would be set up like this, and doing that in real time. And then Trump gets off, and he has to, or they finish, and Trump has to call into Fox, and he sits there. He's like, I'm going to use a landline. The sound is much better. I heard myself, on a cell phone, and he's like, it just doesn't sound good. We need the landline for that good quality sound. The whole thing is just the whole series so far. We've watched 4 episodes of it, and I'm intentionally holding off from watching the rest of them, just because we're doing it with the Schizo stream. But if you guys are not, TuckerCarlson.com. Go sign up for it. This is a free ad. I'm happy to tell people to go sign up for TCN, because it's like $7 a month, something like that. Very cheap, and you get that. I mean, I would probably pay $7 an episode to watch this. I'd probably pay more than that. Very, very good content. All right, let's rock and roll here. And this is the moment of truth where we find out if you guys can actually hear it. You can still see it, looks like. So no slop for us today. No humorous slop. I've got an update from what's going on in North Carolina. Foxy Farmer here is tweeting out a lot of good stuff like this. She says, as folks get access to their homes, they're realizing they are coming home to nothing. So shock and trauma is occurring all day, every day for these areas. Many volunteers, especially search and rescue, are struggling with PTSD. I can't imagine what this mom is facing. So I'm going to speed this one up just to 1 1/4, and we'll watch this.
So today is Sunday, October 27th, and we're back up here at the hub at Chimney Rock. We had a call late last night, early this morning, that a lady had showed up. She had on short sleeve shirt, and was shivering. She was here for her dad. Her dad lives on the other side of Chimney Rock, so she was looking for supplies to him. Maybe a Starlink or something to keep contact with him, and some other supplies. She asked for a sweater that was here at the hub, and the truth came out that she had a baby in her car. She had came back up to assess her damage that she evacuated. So we brought some baby clothes up here from 6 to 9 month old, warm clothes. And what we're finding is a lot of people are coming back to this area that evacuated, and they're coming home to see nothing. They've lost everything, not even enough clothes to supply their kids or stuff that they may need. So every day stuff comes out, and every day we're learning more and more for the people that are trying to get back to the area and coming home to find they have nothing. A little update on this road. When these miners came in and they bridged this road from Batcave to Chimney Rock, they did the impossible. This was a 3-mile stretch that was nothing but rock and rubble. It was almost impassable, 30, 40-foot boulders and rocks to climb up and down. It looked impossible for there to ever be a road here again. But these blue-collar boys come in from West Virginia, and they said, hold my beer. They beat all the red tape. They beat all the bureaucracy going on. And DOT and the state was saying, it may be after winter before you get access. A lot of these people that have businesses and homes weren't going to be able to get here. There was no other way in here. This is a 5-minute drive, and people were having to go all the way around to South Carolina and up to get here. There's a lot of bridges here that people live on the other side of this river that still can't get out. It's not accessible. But these guys came in and said, we're going to fix it. And within 3 days, you can walk all the way from Batcave to Chimney Rock. You can drive a truck. What they conquered is one of the most mind-blowing American things you will ever see. To see so many people from all walks of life to come in here and put aside their political views, to put aside their differences. And what we've seen in the last month is the America that I want to live in, and the America that I want to believe in. My question is, where's the government help with boots on the ground? And not just here with clipboards and Rolexes and suits and ties. Why is it the people? Why is it farmers and West Virginia miners that had to come in here and bridge this road from Batcave to Chimney Rock? Why is our military not building bridges to get access back across these hollers? Why is it on us to supply hubs to make sure that people are sheltered? Why is there already not hundreds of millions of dollars coming to this area instead of so much red tape that are denying people? We have business owners that we know right here in Chimney Rock and in Black Mountain and Swannanoa. Everyone is getting denied. Even the ones that have flood insurance, the insurance companies are saying they don't have to cover it because it was a 1,000-year storm. Those are the answers we need to know. You can believe what you want to believe and watch what you want to watch on the news. And they may be showing help in the area, but that's only the parts that they want to show you. They don't want to show you these poorer communities or these parts that have been absolutely abandoned. We can get some of these people in front of a camera talking about their story all day long. But the truth is, what's going to happen is people are going to discredit them, tell them we're a bunch of redneck hillbillies, backwood Appalachians. It feels like the devastation that we're dealing with is being completely swept under the rug. It's like people want to keep it hush and just keep it a secret. And there's a lot that I want to say, and there's a lot that I've not talked about.
Well, this is exactly why I want to keep playing these kinds of clips. If you guys see any good information, any inside stuff that's going on down there, send it over to me. DM it to me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Send it in the KingPill Discord, kingpill.com. Just get it to me somehow, and I want to keep signal boosting these kinds of things. It's getting harder and harder to find some of this stuff. I'm following a couple of these accounts like Foxy Farmer that are doing this on the regular basis, highlighting these. But if you guys see anything as you're going about, or you experience anything, personally, anyone or anything like that, then please get it to me. Kate says it sounds like theft on the part of the insurance companies. Reminds me, after Hurricane Katrina, that was my senior year of high school. And my class decided that for our class trip, what we wanted to do was go down and do disaster relief. So we went to, we were actually largely in Waveland, Mississippi, but we flew in and out of New Orleans. We spent, I think, 2 or 3 weeks down there, and we were just like basically gutting houses was what we spent the majority of our time doing, because the storm surge had been so high, it completely covered some of the beachfront houses. And a lot of that property used to be like $1 million, like 2005 $1 million homes. Just absolutely massive beachfront, like acre a lot, huge, boats and all kinds of stuff. And they were just, most of them were still standing, but they'd been gutted essentially by the storm. And then further inland, there was a lot of places that looked relatively normal when you walked in, except you'd like walk into the kitchen and you open the cupboard door and all of the glasses would be filled with seawater. So they'd been up to like at least the roof in water, that flowing and sloshing around and everything, but it had been, however, it had just kind of filled up what was there and then just receded again and was gone. But you couldn't live in there anymore, so we had to go just gut the whole thing. I remember climbing around in the attics in Mississippi, and it was like 90 degrees outside. We were wearing respirators. Our respirators would fill up with sweat, and so we would try to dump the sweat on the girls walking down and like cleaning the kitchens below us. It was good memories. But one of the stories that we heard consistently was people getting completely screwed over by the insurance companies, because they would either say, the damage to your house was flood damage, and you just had like hurricane insurance or wind insurance or whatever, or vice versa. So whatever claim they would file, the insurance company would just figure out some sort of way to wiggle around it and exempt themselves from coverage. So most of these people are just wiped out, just nothing. The worst story, I'm going to have to get you guys a little bit black-pilled here at the beginning. I'm sorry. The worst story that I heard was a guy who had, so we were with this big camp that was set up down there, had like temporary shelters and like semi-temporary and big food tents and everything. And so lots of people would come in and they would just be eating at the big food tent. And we'd sit and chat with them. And there was this guy there who was by himself, and middle age, maybe 45, something like that. And he had sent his family out when the storm was getting close, and he was staying back at the house to like batten down the hatches and everything. But he sent his wife and his 2 daughters to head inland and get away from the storm. And they wound up getting in a car accident, and all 3 of them were killed. And he survived and rode out the storm and got the news later on. So he was devastated, obviously. All he had left was the family dog. And so he would go out every morning and just walk down along the beach with the dog, back and forth, because he was just kind of at a loss. And some looters, a young team of youths, came by and caught him while he was by himself and shot the dog and left, just bullying him, basically. So when he got to the camp that we had set up there, He was very close to just ending it all himself. It was a very eye-opening experience. But even at that point, I remember being there, and I remember there being a pretty decent amount of federal infrastructure. I don't remember all the details and everything, and I wasn't completely tracking them at the time. I was 17. I was like, whatever, more interested in the girls that were there. But I remember there being federal people and there being like federal infrastructure that we kind of had to work around or work with. And this here is just like, I don't know what to do except for just keep signal boosting this as much as I can. This is going to take years and years of rebuilding. And the beautiful thing in it, the bitter white pill, as Jason Miranchuk would say, is the way that these people, like these guys from West Virginia, have come down and just bossed the situation. There's a fantastic opportunity for that. This is the bitter white pill. This is the grace that comes through the suffering. We experience the suffering, but we get the grace along with it, which is the opportunity for young men to go prove themselves and go have a fantastic experience and learn a bunch of skills and provide a massive value to the community, which just contributes to the high trust social fabric even more. The grace that comes through suffering. So it's not all bad, but there's a huge, huge task ahead of us. Now, okay, so this is how it works. I got to share here. You can see this. Excellent. Okay, perfect. Another one that's a little bit dark, and this is if you've watched the Tucker Carlson docuseries. They had a segment dedicated to Trump's trip down to the border, where he saw this mom, and you heard a little bit about the story. You might have heard her name, people talking about her. This is her story.
Sunday night, I asked her to not stay up super late because of her coming to work with me in the morning first to do her summer school. She said, okay. I told her good night and I love you. I went to bed, not realizing that was going to be the last time I saw her.
We're best friends.
Yeah. We're going to shake it again.
I woke up to notice she wasn't in her bed. I'm in my heart trying not to lose my mind because I don't know where she is. I finally remembered her phone had a location on, and her phone was pinging just 2 minutes down the road, right behind the skate park. I start driving to the direction the phone was being pinged at, and I see a couple cop cars with lights on. I see yellow tape, and immediately my heart drops and sinks to the bottom of my stomach. My daughter's hands and ankles were both bound. She was strangled to death, left with no pants. And I know in my heart, she fought incredibly hard. She was not going down without a fight.
We begin with two men we're learning are charged with capital murder tonight, accused of killing a 12-year-old girl.
Police say these men strangled her before dumping her into that creek. Both men were in the country illegally.
Apprehended, then released by Border Patrol less than 3 weeks before Jocelyn's death. The men accused of killing Jocelyn Nungare are affiliated with the gang known for brutal violence.
Kamala Harris was in charge of immigration in our borders. If we had better border policies and not open borders and not these catch and release policies, I truly believe this all could have been prevented. Under her being vice president of this country, my daughter's life was ripped away from her. She had her entire life ahead of her.
Happy birthday, dear Jocelyn.
My daughter is 6 feet in the ground based off of policies that she allowed to keep. Kamala Harris did have one job, and she not only failed, not me, she failed my daughter. She failed Jocelyn. She was only 12. President Trump reached out, gave me his sincerest condolences as not a former president, but just as a father, someone who cares. I believe Donald Trump needs to be back in office, I can at least know that my next child will be safe in this country.
That last line hits like a freaking dump truck. I can only hope that under him in office, my next child will be safe in this country. Meanwhile, here's AOC and Tim Walz attempting to appeal to the youth by pretending to play Madden while talking about Project 2025. Oh, and well, now we encounter problems. No sound, huh? Well, let's try the screen share again. You guys will have to bear with me today as I work through any kinks. Now I'm starting it again. Judge Maddie says too loud. Are you trolling me? What's happening here? I'm going to restart it again.
Unbelievable. No, and I keep going back to this. This is Project 2025 from Personal Freedoms. I think a lot of folks on here are kind of independent folks, independent thinkers about things. Why would you want the government telling you what books to read or what doctor to see or how big your family can be? That kind of stuff is ridiculous. And so I think you talk about football planning, it's the same way. If you're going to draw up a playbook in football, you're going to use it. Those guys drew up a playbook, and it's Project 2025.
And they put millions of dollars into Project 2025. You don't spend millions of dollars without planning to use it.
Oh, God, no. And it's all these people around him. And J.D. Vance said, I don't know anything about it. He wrote the foreword of the book of The Architect, who wrote that. Unbelievable. No, and I keep going.
As a longtime sports ball enjoyer, very avid football watcher, never really played Madden all that much, but if they're conceiving this to target young men who like football and like Madden, they're doing it's so obviously written by gay men who think sports ball is yucky, which those two things go together very well, by the way, and women. This is the most awkward, goofy thing. They very obviously never played Madden before. And this like ham-fisted attempt to compare drawing up a playbook in politics and drawing up a playbook in sports, because I'm the sports guy, you know. This is a white pill. This is how retarded these people are. They think that this is compelling. I'm going to show you guys some stuff in a little bit that's compelling to a guy like me. And just to add insult to injury, they did this during the middle of the witching hour on NFL Sunday. If you know the NFL, if you follow the NFL, if you've ever watched the Red Zone, which is a huge cultural thing for people who watch NFL Red Zone, you know that the moment between, between 1 and, or is it 2 and 3? Yeah, 2 and 3 Eastern that's the witching hour. When losses become wins and when wins become losses and losses become wins. Because you get it's like the last half of all the morning games, and that's when everything can start getting really crazy. It's like a big deal. People turn in for the witching hour. And they streamed this during the witching hour. They don't have a single person anywhere near or around them that watches football or has any sort of finger on the pulse of NFL football watching culture. You don't even have to be like a real avid football watcher to know that. If you're just a casual who like turns on NFL Red Zone in the morning because it comes with your cable package or whatever, and you just let it play and just have it in the background while you're cleaning the house or doing whatever, you know about the witching hour. These people are so dumb. Yeah, when the 1 p.m. games go to the fourth quarter, that's when it is. Of note, though, in looking at these last two videos, you could see it a lot more in this one here. Let me share this tab. You can see it a lot more in her here, but in this here, does anything stand out about AOC to you?
Hey everyone, what's up? We're about to go live with Tim Walz playing Madden in about an hour. We'll be talking about a lot of other things, but hop on our Twitch stream to check it out. Hey everyone, what's up?
I quote tweeted this and said that I would pay all $9 of my dollars. I would bet all $9 of my dollars that she's pregnant. She's got a pregnant look to her. And apparently I'm not the first. This isn't an original observation. The tweet's going bonkers on Twitter right now. It's quickly into like my top 10 tweets ever tweeted. And it was just something I fired off, like whatever. But that if that's the case, then it'd be very interesting. Interesting what would happen with a pregnant AOC. Every single person replying to my tweet is all like, they all have the exact same thought. And all of them think that it's original. I've got, I don't know, 50 replies to it, and all 50 of them are some variant of, oh, you think she'll keep it? Which, okay, yes, very nice. Very nice, low-hanging fruit. Good job. But genuinely, if, like, I made a prediction about prominent lefty names that wind up going the, like, independent or pro-MAGA route, and I can absolutely see that as a heel turn for her at some point in the future. I think she's positioned herself where she's remained at least rhetorically independent from the DNC enough. She's been aggressive enough, kind of separately from them, that I think she could take like a Fetterman angle, kind of. And if she's genuinely pregnant, well, I mean, hormonal changes are real. If there was going to be a radical change, then yeah, like Anna Kasparian. I can see her having a turn that way. This will be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Ginger soy bun in the oven. You don't know it's his. All right. So the big news of the weekend. You thought it might be the big news of the weekend, but it's actually kind of, people have moved on from it just a little bit already. Trump on Rogan. Imagine if someone had told you, even like 2 or 3 years ago, that Trump would go on Rogan, and it would probably not be the biggest story of the weekend. That's how big that Madison Square Garden event was, for better or for worse. But Trump went on Rogan on Friday evening. I'm sure most of you guys, it's got something like 35 million views or something already. So I'm sure the vast majority of you have already seen it. If you haven't, I've got some clips coming up, and we'll see if we can get through this without getting the stream suspended on YouTube. But this guy here, Matt McCowiak, co-founder of Save Austin Now, he says, exclusive, I can reveal Harris was in advanced talks with Rogan on joining the podcast this morning. Now, this is posted on Friday, spending Thursday night in ATX, taping today, and then going to Houston. Advance was preparing, and local law enforcement was notified. So it went far enough that local law enforcement was notified. Trump agreed to no limits on the Rogan podcast. Harris wouldn't. That's what it came down to. Instead, she went to Houston, where a whole bunch of people showed up for a Beyonce concert and got really mad when Beyonce came out and talked for a couple minutes and left. Which was, I either saw, this is, I'm just off the top of my head now, I either saw that has happened before with her and Beyonce, or they're going to be doing it again. One of the two. It's like they keep going to this well so they can get the headline of, Harris speaks in front of crowd of 50,000 or whatever. And it's all just people who show up because they think it's a free Beyonce concert, and then they find out Beyonce's not there, and they get all mad and they storm out. And so there's these clips coming out of her being booed and heckled, and she's like, the optics are just catastrophically bad. Easily the worst presidential campaign I've ever seen. I thought the Joe Biden campaign was bad. Easily the worst. She would be better off not going out at all. It wouldn't be good for her, but she would be better off just staying behind closed doors and going the full Biden route. She has equal chances either way. And it's probably worse this way. So instead, Trump goes, or not instead, but so Trump goes, jaw-dropping Rogan Trump interview crushes Kamala Harris campaign. The full 3-hour talk summarized in less than 10 minutes. Now, there's more than 10 minutes worth of clips here, but I'm not going to play all of them. We've talked about some of this stuff before. Donald Trump just accomplished what Kamala Harris never could: take unscripted questions from Joe Rogan and answer them directly and clearly. The conversation started with a bang as Rogan shed light on the shocking footage from Trump's 2015 appearance on The View. You won't believe how well the cast treated him, as Barbara Walters refers to Trump as a friend. So we've played this video.
When you were on Oprah's show, just watch this. This is nuts. We're in an alternative universe, okay? Because this is not that long ago.
Go standing O.
Bro, watch this. Just watch how this goes. Watch this. So she's a Republican. That's easy.
Yep.
But everybody else.
Look at Joy. Hugs. Can't wait to get a hug in.
Yeah, everyone's hugging. Look at this. Look at this. Kisses, hugs, kisses to Whoopi. Everybody hugs and kisses.
This is our new look at North.
Boehner.
The Musicians Russia decided to be president. When you see the machine go after a guy, we've never seen the machine go after someone as bold-faced. You know, the prosecutions, the Russiagate stuff on television every night, all of it. It's and then to see just a.
So that's the first. Minutes later, in a moment of self-reflection, Trump told Rogan that his biggest mistake in his first term was appointing some bad people to his administration. Now, this is a very interesting clip.
The biggest.
So I'm going to do everything I can to keep this from getting the stream pulled. So I'm not going to show the entire screen here. I'm going to speed it up just a bit, and hopefully we'll be able to watch these whole clips.
The mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, you know, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
neocons?
Yeah, neocons, or bad people, or disloyal people, or
people that were just
people
bad,
that were into the
people got bad advice.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're reading about him a little bit today. A guy like Kelly, who was a bully, but a weak person. You know more about bullies than anybody probably around because you deal in a certain sport where the bullies are exposed very quickly.
Yeah.
But he's bad. Bolton was an idiot, but he was great for me because.
This is very interesting what he says about Bolton here. He says Bolton was an idiot, but he was great for me, and here's why. He's going to go on to explain it. And you see here the difference between the hardcore ideologue political mind that is like, Bolton is bad, he wants bad things, therefore no Bolton. Where Trump's like, well, I can use this guy.
I'd go in with a guy like a John Bolton. You know John Bolton. A friend of mine called me up. I was picking Bolton, and he's a very smart guy. His name is Phil Ruffin. He's a very rich guy from Las Vegas. He's a great card player. He doesn't play cards, but he's a great player. He's just a natural. Got poker sense, right? Good old poker sense. And Phil Ruffin is a very, very wise kind of a guy, and one of the richest people around, and has had great success and understands people. So it was in that I was picking Bolton, or I picked Bolton. He called up. He said, "Don't pick him. Why? He's a bad guy." Now, he wasn't in politics at all. He's in various businesses. He said, "He's a bad guy. It always works out bad with that guy." I said, "Oh, man, I wish you told me this 2 weeks ago. I already hired him. He's here." And he was right. But he was good in a certain way. He's a nut job. And every time I had to deal with a country, when they saw this whack job standing behind me, they said, "Oh, man, Trump's going to go to war with us." He was with Bush when they went stupidly into the Middle East. They should have never done it. I used to say it as a civilian. So I always got more publicity than other people. And it wasn't like I was trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I could definitely tell you. You said a lot of wild shit.
Maybe.
So that's quite clever. He's using it's like part of his speak loudly and chaotically and carry a big stick kind of persona, where he just kind of plays that, like, there's a specific term for it, but it's like a something madman, where you're you kind of, people aren't totally sure what to expect from you because you're so your behavior is so discordant with anything else around you. But one thing that I've noticed after, well, okay, let me back up. So because I started doing this show in June, what's that? June, July, August, September, October. So I've been doing this show now for almost 5 months, daily, mostly daily. And because of that, I'm having to go, I've gone full like content hound now. Now I'm constantly, no matter what I'm doing, I'm either scrolling for interesting tweets, adding them to the bookmarks, sorting the bookmarks, listening to interviews, watching YouTube videos. I'm just constantly putting tons and tons of stuff through my head. And the benefit of this has been, I've realized the effect of Elon Musk purchasing Twitter and insisting on free speech and opening it up in concert with this rise in long form podcasting. What's happening now is that politics is happening increasingly out in the open. What were once conversations that would have been said privately, or things people would have talked about privately to one another, because the only way to talk about them publicly was really to have some sort of major platform, and all the major platforms are strictly controlled and regimented, and you have a certain type of decorum and certain things you just don't have time to get into, or you can't substantiate, or yada, 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 yada. Certain people are just never going to talk to each other in public, yada, yada, yada. But what's happened now is you can have a conversation between Joe Rogan and Donald Trump where they talk for 3 hours, basically unscripted, off the cuff, and just conversationally. Which means they can get into lots of stuff out in the open, reveal lots of things about behind the scenes workings that never would have made it out into the open before. And at the same time, we're also seeing that posting on Twitter in particular, or making YouTube content that winds up on Twitter, has the possibility of going viral and getting in front of people like Elon Musk, JD Vance, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan, Mark Andreessen, David Sachs. A lot of fairly big movers and shakers now are in a sort of dialogue with us lower down the totem pole. So in a sense, it's almost the free speech thing. There's this paradox that I'm trying to work out where in a sense it's democratized politics even more. In the sense that it's made it even more possible for every single person to be able to influence outcomes in some way. But not every single person is capable of or going to do that. So it's like the more you democratize things, the more hierarchy you create, in a sense, as a natural fallout from that. Because like the democratization of speech is allowing the best voices actually to now begin to rise up naturally. So it's kind of like how the internet, in another model, the internet caused both the greatest centralization of wealth and power, like the biggest companies ever, by multiple orders of magnitude. Those were created through the internet, leveraged by the internet. And at the same time, anybody right now, for less than like, I don't know, maybe $300, can start up a company and start selling stuff and theoretically scale that up effectively infinitely. So there's like a great democratization effect, but also a verticalization or a hierarchy creating effect to that democratization. It's a naturally occurring outcome from it. So it's really making me think about democracy as I'm seeing it kind of in a new light, and I'm not sure if it's better or worse. It's just kind of like this. There's a natural outworking to this sort of principle. So that was one thought that I had. The other thought was, I realized as I was maybe 2 hours through this conversation that this experience of the last 5 months, watching all of this stuff that I can, including the behind the scenes stuff with the Tucker documentary and all the Tucker Carlson conversations and all the JD Vance conversations and all the Elon Musk conversations and all the Donald Trump conversations, the fact that he's gone out and he's done all these long form podcasts means that for someone who has, like me, who has listened to every single one of them, often multiple times, consumed tons and tons of content about them, and just sat here thinking about it constantly, my perception of Trump has changed pretty significantly. I've gone from being like, yeah, he's like kind of he's like arrogant and egotistical and kind of boorish and, but these are like positive qualities. Like he manages to affect positive things through them. And he's kind of a, maybe like a chaotic neutral kind of guy where he's a great fighter, great advocate. It's great to have him on our side. And he's a great man of history and all this. But what I've come to realize over the past 5 months is that he's all that, but he's really not that boorish, actually. He's actually a very thoughtful, considered, contemplative, very well thought, very intelligent. And he's got a very warm heart, very sincere, warm guy. You can see it in the way his relationship with all of his kids, the way he just naturally connects with people. Looking at behind the scenes conversations of him just standing around, just chatting people up who are around him. Like I've come to really, really respect and admire the man. There's no question in my mind he's one of the greatest Americans of all time. And it's revealed to me even more just how much my perspective of him has been filtered through people who had a vested interest in making me feel some type of way about him. Even someone who's as full Trump support as you could possibly get. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. He is our champion. Even I've had my mind changed about him. And that's the effect of sitting here and watching him. And so a follow on from that I also was contemplating is that he's an incredibly gifted communicator, but his communication style is built for long form. This is why his rallies are so successful. And this is why most people think that they think he's like a goofball or a buffoon, because the way that he communicates is so orthogonal to the way that anybody else normally talks. But it manages to be really effective if you sit there and you track what he's saying. If you actually follow him, then it's incredible how astute his mind is. You can really follow his train of thought really easily. But if you cut him off too early, if you don't allow him to just talk about what's on his mind, it's like his favorite thing to do. He just loves talking about what's on his mind. If you cut that off, then it's like, I don't know. It's like stopping a painting halfway through and being like, "Oh, this painting sucks. It's missing half of it." Well, yeah. So he was absolutely made for the long form podcasting world, which has made his choice to do all of these just so incredible. And this one in particular, he sat down and he talked for 3 hours. And he owned that conversation for 3 hours. And Rogan said afterwards the next day, he said he didn't pee when he got there. He didn't drink anything while he was there. He didn't pee when he left. He just came in, sat down, and talked for 3 hours and was just ready to go and headed out again. So he went to some kind of rally or assembly or something like that in the morning, flew down to Austin, went to some sort of rally or something there, went in, talked to Joe Rogan for 3 hours, left, got on a plane, flew up to Michigan, and then gave a speech for like an hour and a half. The dude is a automaton. He's an absolute monster. There's plenty of there's young men who would be wiped out with his schedule. And he is just buzzing right along. I mean, he definitely seems tired. But he's freaking 78. He's got, and like that alone just speaks to the strength of his character. He is genuinely American nobility. He's probably the greatest example of American nobility alive today. And it's not particularly close. Let's continue with this here. Rogan, who has not historically been a Trump fan, started dishing out compliments to the former president, telling him that the reason why he's so popular is because he's genuine and doesn't speak in bullshit, pre-prepared politician lingo.
I always got more publicity than other people, and it wasn't like I was trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I could definitely tell you. You said a lot of wild shit.
Maybe. Maybe
you said a lot of wild shit, and then CNN, in all their brilliance, by highlighting your wild shit, made you much more popular.
Yeah.
And they boosted you in the polls because people were tired of someone talking in this bullshit, pre-prepared politician lingo. And even if they didn't agree with you, they at least knew whoever that guy is, that's him. That's really him. Yeah. When you see certain people talk, certain people in the public eye, you don't know who they are. You have no idea who they are. It's very difficult to know. You see them in conversations. They have these pre-planned answers. They say everything. It's very rehearsed. You never get to the meat of it. One of the beautiful things about you is that you freeball. Like, you get out and you do these huge events and you're just talking and you're making. We've highlighted you on the show many times when you did this Biden impression where he's walking around, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's funny. It's stand up. It's funny stuff. But it's like you and you were making fun of Elon one time. You were doing an Elon impression. It's great. You have like comedic instincts. Like when you said to Hillary, you'd be in jail. Like that's great timing. Yeah. But it's like that kind of stuff was unheard of as a politician. Like no one had done that.
The other thing too that I used to buy the notion that he's like egotistical or he's like vain, image obsessed. And I'm sure he's not a perfect man. He's got his passions that he deals with or whatever, but I don't see him as particularly ego obsessed at all. Especially after listening to a lot of these longer form conversations. He talks about himself a lot because every single conversation that he's in is about him because of who he is. But he actually is, anytime anybody like compliments him or talks about some great thing, he always pivots immediately to talking about other people. He doesn't really talk about himself that much unless it's like in service to some other point. And whenever he says anything about how well that his campaign is or how big his rallies are or any of that, like that's a big thing. He talks about how big his rallies are. When he's doing that, it's a source of like collective pride in his whole team. That's what he's talking about. He's not like, wow, look how great I am that I get these big rallies. He always talks about the campaign as us. And you see this from behind the scenes in the Tucker documentary and any other like. Even when you could listen to him elaborate at length, it's very clear that he sees what he's doing as not a him thing. It's an us thing, and he's the one bearing the responsibility to play his role. And really, when he talks about the rallies, and he gets pissy when people criticize the rallies, it's because he's taking it personally on behalf of the people who are at the rallies. He's not taking it personally himself. Talking about Elon.
You can do that. Elon did that. By the way, Elon is great. That guy is such a great guy. I think you're a fan of Elon. Him. He is from a different planet. He's the greatest guy.
Like there's a little thing right there. He's like, I think you're a fan. He does this sort of thing all the time while he's talking. He's constantly interested in someone else's perspective and he's wanting to connect with their perspective. So here he's like trying to draw. He's like we're on the same page, right? Like you really like him? Yeah. And he does this constantly throughout this, talks about how great Joe is with MMA and doing all the commentating that he does. And he'll stop and start kind of interviewing his interviewer when he's in a comfortable place like this and start asking them questions and trying to get their opinion, which squares completely with all the stories of him. Like he asks the gardener at Mar-a-Lago what he thinks of JD Vance. He does that because he genuinely cares. He's like, I wonder what the Gardner constituency thinks. Or really, it's more like, I wonder what this guy thinks. I like this guy. I wonder what he thinks. Let me get his input on this. He's like the greatest executive of all time.
That rocket coming in.
Yeah.
I thought, I told the story once or twice, so you may have heard it, because his speeches have been good. Did you see the one last night?
Yeah.
29,000 people. That was it.
Yeah.
And the one the night before was the same thing. We are rocking and rolling. But Elon, and I'm talking to this very important guy.
We are rocking and rolling.
Wait a minute. I'm looking at something. The television's unmuted, right? And I see this rocket. It's all brown from the heat. It's like 10,000 degrees pouring down at thousands of miles an hour. And I see this thing. It's like a 20-story building.
And it catches
And I say to this guy, who's an important guy, wait a minute. let me just put you down. Hold it. I got to see this. And I see this, and it's going to crash. I said, it's going to crash into the gantry. They call it a gantry. I said, oh, man, that's going to be a disaster because it's starting to get very close. And then all of a sudden you see the flames and about and it boom. And then you see the two arms grab it.
Crazy.
And I forgot the guy. I had him on the phone. I forgot. No, I said, the hell with it. No, I called Elon. I said, was that you? He said, that was me. And I said, who else can do that? He said, nobody. Russia can't do it. The United States, nobody can do it. You know, I set up Space Force. That was me. And that's the first time in 82 years that we opened another branch since the Air Force. And that's going to be one of our most important things. But think of what Elon does.
Ah, that's a neat little drop there. That's going to be one of the most important things, the Space Force. For those of you out there, I know that there's a small handful of you who speak Jungian cognitive functions. And Trump is the absolute definition of extroverted thinking. This is why he's always focused on other people, what other people did, what other people said, what other people think. He has the first thing he asks Elon is, well, who else can do this? You can do this. Who else can do this? He wants to know what's happening with other people. And constantly the perspective of other people is what's on his mind. So he tells this story about him on the phone with this guy, and he remembers what happened with the guy. That's a big part of it. I've heard him tell the story multiple times, and he mentions it every time that he left that guy on the phone. He remembers what happened to that guy. That's it's like a key part of the story to him. The reason the Jungian cognitive function stuff is interesting is because if you understand what the nature of that extroverted thinking, you know that it comes along with introverted feeling. And so it tells you a lot about him personally, what he's feeling. And by feeling, I don't mean emotions. I mean like his vibes, his intuitions, his like value center. The extroverted thinking has this inversion on it that is present, that follows around like a shadow. This is the same sort of thing that brings the analysis of things like the vengeful son. You can understand the vengeful son as a shadow of the prodigal son because of this Jungian shadow archetype. Now, talking about the 2020 election.
One of the things that was fascinating also was the denial of the election results is a pretty common thing. Hillary Clinton famously denied that and she called you an illegitimate president, and she said that Russia put you in place.
Even though she conceded.
Yes.
You know, she conceded the night of the election because she was beaten.
Yes, and it was a thing that was pretty common for people, especially Democrats.
She was beaten. Not I beat her. She was beaten. He's telling the story from her perspective.
Democrats that deny the elections. There's been many of them. The Bush administration, the dangling chads, all that stuff.
Well, look at these guys in Congress. All these sleazebags in Congress that are Democrats. They're still denying 2016.
Look at all these other people. What all these other people are doing.
But now they don't so much because they try and pin it on me. You don't hear them say.
But here's my point.
They denied it right up until the end.
My point is, this idea of election fraud is a forbidden topic. And you get labeled an election denier. It's like being labeled an anti-vaxxer if you question some of the health consequences that people have had from the COVID-19 shots. Oh my God, you're an anti-vaxxer. If you say
Joe getting real close to getting this video taken down. If he wasn't Joe Rogan, I'm playing that, I may get the video taken down. If he wasn't Joe Rogan talking to Donald Trump and they couldn't possibly get away with pulling it down, he may have gotten it pulled down just for that.
And what I say publicly, and I've said this a lot, it's not 0%. So if you ask me, what is the amount of election fraud in this country? Is it 0%? No one thinks it's 0%. I've never met one person, not a super liberal, progressive, far left person or a right-wing conservative. Not one person thinks it's 0%. They think when you have human beings, and also you have a lot of weirdness that was going on during the 2020 elections, particularly with mail-in ballots.
And you had legislatures that had to approve, and they didn't approve, and they went out and did it anyway. And you had old-fashioned ballot screwing. I mean, you had You have people going up and dropping in phony votes. You had unsigned ballots, et cetera, et cetera.
There's certain people that think that they have, and there's the rhetoric is also that you're Hitler, and that in order to stop Hitler, you have to do whatever it takes.
That was okay, yeah.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, you're hearing this now. Kamala compared you to, said your love of Hitler yesterday.
It's interesting that one of the things Trump keeps bringing up with whenever he talks about 2020 is the legislation. A lot of legislation that was pushed through illegally that at the last minute that shouldn't have, which is something that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. And it makes me wonder if that's going to be an angle for them as they plan for managing the legal process surrounding this upcoming election. It's crazy how far we've come, though, where Trump and Rogan are just speaking openly about what happened in 2020. When I did a show the entire time, and I remember very well what we could and could not say. And we couldn't get even remotely close to what they're talking about now. Here's him talking about Kamala.
In order to stop Hitler. The rhetoric is also that you're Hitler, and that hearing this now, Kamala compared you to, said your love of Hitler yesterday.
Kamala's a very low IQ person. She's a very low IQ. I'm for taking tests too. I think anybody that runs for president they should give them tests. And it's not an age thing. It's not based. If you look back on history, 70s and 80s, some of your greatest leaders in the world history, long-time world history, they were in their 70s and their 80s. But I think you should take cognitive tests. I think they say it's unconstitutional. But
That's ridiculous.
I think Kamala should have a test because there's something missing. There's something wrong with her.
Well, I think it's pressure. I think the pressure and the scrutiny, you've been a celebrity for a long time and you understand what this is like. But for someone who's in her late 40s, who becomes the vice president, who runs for president, becomes the vice president, and then all of a sudden the weight of the world is on your shoulders and there's all these people paying attention. A lot of people clam up.
But you either have it or you don't.
Correct.
Look, this is an interview.
He said late 40s. Kamala just turned 60. I don't know what he meant by late 40s. Maybe like late 40s was... what would that have been? That would have been like when she was Attorney General, California. She hasn't been late 40s in a while.
Covered a lot of territory, right? And it's fine. I don't care. I want to. I think it's much more interesting. To do an interview with Anderson Cooper.
He almost called him Allison Cooper again.
Crazy softball interview. She took 2 days off and she studied all day long, and then she comes out with a result that was a real embarrassment. That was a really bad interview. She couldn't answer a question, and every question's not answered. I mean, like, what would you do your first day in office? Okay, I'll build a wall. I won't build a wall. There's 100 things you can say. Just say anything, right? There's something off with her.
There's 100 things you can say. Just say something. Yeah. You either got it or you don't.
No.
So this is one of the bigger viral clips that came out. Of course, it's something Rogan said, but I do think that he's right and that this is indicative of the direction of the future.
The rebels are Republicans now. They're like, you want to be a rebel, you want to be punk rock, you want to buck the system. You're a conservative now. That's how crazy. And then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism. They're pro censorship online. They're talking about regulating free speech and that regulating the First Amendment. It's bananas to watch.
Joe, they come after their political opponent.
Well, they
I got more guys. I always say, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all. He'd kill you in 2 seconds if he didn't like you, right? I've been under investigation more than Alphonse Capone, only because it's political opponent stuff. And I've won. I won the big case in Florida. I'm winning the other stuff. You win. But you know what they did? They did something that's only done in third world countries. They came after their political opponent.
Yes.
I could have put crooked Hillary in jail.
Well, not only that, but they're weaponizing it by saying that that's what you're going to do once you get in office.
Isn't it great?
By ignoring what they're doing right now. It's crazy.
I heard it. Somebody was defending me today. They said, no, they say, that's what you're doing to him. They're going, he's going to put us in jail. He's going to invest.
That's
said,
what you're
that's
doing.
what you're doing to him.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, will you do that? Will you do that to him to them if you win? You know, the presidency has tremendous power. I could have put crooked Hillary
I
in
respected
jail.
that you didn't, because what you said was it would be bad for the country.
This has been, I can't remember if this is the first time he said it, but he's mentioned a couple of times now, I think, that he had a lot of people who were really champing at the bit to put her in jail. And he was like, no, let's not do that, because all this is going to do is escalate everything. And I can sympathize with that decision at that time, especially if you're coming in, you're not someone who's already completely jaded on the nature of the system. Like, yeah, that's pretty good calculus. If we put her in jail right now, it's really going to escalate things big time. And we need to settle things down and just put our head down, ignore all the noise, get this shit done, get the economy spinning up, and get people back from wars, and just really, really start cranking. Obviously, in hindsight, it would have made quite a scene if he'd done it. But if you think that he wasn't ready to cross the Rubicon in 2020, he definitely wasn't going to cross the Rubicon in frickin' 2017. All right. Actually, no, there's a couple more here. Yeah, he's going to talk a little bit about RFK, and we've got RFK, some RFK clips later on.
First of all, I love this idea of you teaming up with Robert Kennedy.
Right.
And I love this Make America Healthy Again idea, because there are chemicals and ingredients in our food that are illegal in other countries because they've been shown.
One thing I just realized is that they're not wearing their headphones. Almost like all Rogan guests all wear the headphones, but I wonder if he said, no, I'm not going to mess up the hair. You can see him sitting here, and he's like, I'm not going to mess up the hair. I got a rally to go to, and so then Rogan's not wearing his.
Shown to be toxic. There's pesticides and herbicides, and there's a lot of shit that's been sprayed on our food that really is unnecessary, and there's a lot of health consequences that people are suffering from a lot of these things. And
I brought this chart for you.
Beautiful.
Because I had
this right
a feeling
here.
You'd be asking me.
Thank
Look
you.
at this chart. These are healthier.
I put out a tweet, said something like I made a meme about Barron saying, just hold up the blank white sheet of paper and point at it. Make sure it's on screen. The boys will take care of the rest of it. This is perfect meme content right here. I made I put a tweet from Cringe Walker about putting James Lindsay in the crystals. Here's where we're going to put Jimmy after he gets his fat ass up off the couch and votes for me. Just anytime that anybody ever goes and does something on screen where they post a big whiteboard or hold up a sign or a paper or anything like that, the internet's going to turn it into a meme. And I've honestly been a little disappointed that I haven't seen more memes from this.
Countries, look what the United States is. I'm going to send this to RFK Jr. Look
so
at that.
This is something along the. I was actually talking to RFK today, and he told me that more than 70% of young men are ineligible for the military because of their health.
I could see it.
That's crazy.
A lot of it's obesity.
So here's the life expectancy versus health expenditure.
Same chart.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
USA.
Wow,
yeah.
That's pretty good.
Jamie's the best.
He's very good.
He's the best.
But look at that. Look what
at
the USA is.
It's not good. And that's our food.
That
that's our diet. That's sedentary lifestyle. That's our diet. That's the chemicals we ingest. That's what that is.
But RFK is going to be very.
Just another small thing. The way he reacts to Jamie putting that up there, this is not the behavior of a narcissist. This man doesn't have the tiniest bit of narcissism in him. Whatever his passions are, narcissism is not one of them.
I think he's a great guy.
I love the fact that you guys teamed up.
Yeah.
And are you completely committed to have him a part of your administration?
Oh, I am. But the only thing I want to be a little careful about with him is the environmental. Because, he doesn't like oil. I love oil and gas. I think
just keep him out of that.
To fire. So I'm going to sort of keep him out of a little. I said, focus on health. Focus. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. But I got to be a little bit careful with the liquid gold,
I understand. But listen, there's plenty of good work that could be done if you focus on health.
This here, one of the most telling quotes out of this whole interview. The fact that he's, first of all, great question from Joe. Like, are you actually serious about him playing the role that he supposedly is going to play? And Trump's like, oh, yeah. But then he says, it is crazy. Like, nobody would say this out loud. This is totally different from the way politics has ever been done. He straight up says, I told him he can't be involved in the environmental stuff at all. Not only does he actually tell RFK that, and RFK agrees, but then he publicly goes on to Joe Rogan and says, yeah, I told RFK that his environmental stuff is wacky. Don't want anything to do with that. He's got to keep that to himself. Do the health stuff. But we're going to be protecting the liquid gold over here. It's just, and that RFK would accept that too. It just goes to show the character of these guys. And I'd say like how serious they are about what they're actually trying to accomplish.
Pressuring you to not work with him. Have there been? Do you have anyone that is pressuring you to not work with him? Have there been people
not
that are
work with
reaching
who?
RFK Jr.?
Yes.
Yes, I would imagine, because financially he could put a dent.
I would say that, and you know, I think in many ways they've done a good job. In many ways they've done a bad job. But I would say that the Big Pharma wasn't thrilled when they heard that. You know, I have a relate. I've actually always gotten along very well with him. I've known him a long time. He's a different kind of a guy. He's very smart, great guy, and he's very sincere about this. I mean, he really is. You know, he thinks we spend a fortune on pesticides and all this stuff, and then you end up with that chart is a terrible chart. The one previous, it's such a bad chart when you look at where we are compared to other countries that don't spend 10 cents.
Right.
So you know, and you save a lot of money. But yeah, I've had some people that aren't exactly thrilled.
It's funny too, and you save a lot of money, you know. So yeah, the economic benefits, that's great too. Oh, this fits perfectly into the rest of my plans. Great, let's do it.
Big hoax. It was all a big hoax. So
well, that's clear. That's one example. That is a good example.
That's a big example. They say it made a 17-point difference. That's a big example, but that's only one. And you could go into the ballots where they wouldn't give you access to the ballots. You could go into the ballot harvesting. You could go into $500 million for the lock boxes.
But just in terms of narrative, so there's two things, right? There's the Russia hoax. There's the collusion with Russia that was never proven, right? That's one.
Well, no, it was proven it didn't happen.
Right. Yeah. But they talked about it on
television.
But
it took 2.5 years to prove.
But not only that, but it was a constant narrative on television. So
sure.
that's a constant narrative that gets into people's minds, especially low information people that just watch the news, that you're in collusion with Russia. So that's one.
Sure.
So that changes the narrative. And then you have the 51 former intelligence agents that work with the original Twitter and get them to remove links. You can't share it on DMs. You cannot share that story. They swept that story because they said it was Russian disinformation, even though they knew it was not.
100%.
So that's two examples that are real examples. Now, anyone who considers himself a legitimate, objective observer of American politics, if you really want the best person to win, you would want people to not lie. And the only reason why they got away with this lie was because they continually labeled you as this horrible threat to democracy and Hitler. They kept saying you're going to be a dictator, ignoring the fact that you weren't a dictator for the 4 years where you were actually the president.
On this show,
I could imagine her doing the show.
She'd be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to do it.
I will talk to her like a human being. I would try to have a conversation with her.
If she did this kind of an interview with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her.
Joe's like, gotta save it.
I wouldn't try to interview her. I just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being. That was my goal, having her on.
Can you imagine Kamala doing this show? Bad thing.
That certainly is a problem. Mail-in ballots a problem.
But every
Another
other country,
problem is voter
countries,
ID.
Yeah, a voter ID.
Voter ID is the most bizarre argument that I've never seen anybody articulate in a way that's convincing.
Because
why
they
you
want to
don't
cheat.
need voter. Well, it doesn't make sense any other way. I've tried to straw man it, or I tried to steel man it rather. I've tried to look at it from a position like, why would you not want people to have ID? And a lot of the ideas are just ridiculous.
Trump is just insistent. He's like, no, quit beating around the bush. Literally the only reason. And Joe's like, well, I'm trying to play the good guy here. I'm trying to steel man it. Which, by the way, the term steel man, I'm pretty sure that we have a guy in the King Pill Discord who has a very good claim. I've heard him make the claim, and I think that it's pretty rock solid. I can't prove it one way or the other, but I think it's pretty rock solid that he's the one who came up with the term steel man, because he was in the Eric Weinstein Discord back in the day. and they were trying to come up with the people in the Discord were workshopping, trying to come up with a term that was like what steelman is. And he suggested it. Everyone started using it, and then Eric Weinstein started using it shortly thereafter, and then Sam Harris picked it up. So that's why you need to be part of the King Pill Discord, folks. You can be around celebrities that you've never heard of.
ID and a driver's license.
Okay, but here's now the next step. Gavin Newsom, one of the worst governors in the world, and I used to get along, but I don't get along with him because he's just too, it's just a whole con job. But Gavin Newsom, the other day signed a bill that you are not allowed to ask a person, even ask them whether or not they have voter ID.
Now, what could be a charitable reason why anybody
because they
would
want to cheat?
But that would be the only thing that makes sense.
But that's taking it to the next level.
Right.
Now, you have ID. The Democrat National Convention, when they had it the last time I saw, they had a sign, like a billboard, on the name of the person, where they live, how they live, who the hell their boyfriends are. Every single, and a big picture. That's for they have an ID, a big ID. It was hanging like you were a prisoner. They had these massive cards, everything. And yet when it comes to the vote, in theory, the most important thing we do, okay, when you go to a grocery store, you give ID. But for a vote, it's supposed to be a sacred thing, and it should be a sacred thing. No voter ID because they want to cheat.
Well, it doesn't make sense in any other way. I've tried to look at
There's no other way.
There's no argument that anybody's presented that makes any sense. Why?
You know the funny thing, Joe? The Democrats, the people, they all think you should have it. In other words, you should have it.
Yeah.
If you go to the people, Mrs. Schwartz, Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
Sure.
They say, of course, yeah. Democrats, they say yes. It's the politicians that don't want it, like Schumer and these guys, they don't want it because they want to be able to cheat. Because you know what? If they didn't have it, okay, who is going to vote for somebody that wants open borders? Who's going to vote for somebody that wants to have men playing in women's sports?
All right. So then I'm gonna end it there. There was the stuff about the JFK files and the stuff about the UFOs. And Trump made one interesting thing. He said something about they've talked to me about the people coming from space, which is kind of an interesting way to frame it. And then with the JFK files, I got the sense that he genuinely doesn't think that there's a whole lot more in the JFK files that's going to be super explosive. He doesn't seem to be like, oh, there's, he's like, yeah, we're going to get it. We're going to release it. We're going to make sure that it's out there. But there are people who are still alive, or at least were 4+ 6 years ago, who are implicated. And that could not be that they're like criminally implicated or anything, but like they were a witness or something like that. And he said that's the reason why he only released 50% of them. The other thing, was the other thing? With the UFOs. He was kind of like, yeah, it's not all that interesting to me, but there's some people who are, and so he obviously hints very much, like he knows more. He knows a lot more, and that seemed to be a little bit more. I'm less interested in the JFK files and more interested in the UFO stuff. $5 from Matthew Ivy. Thank you, man. He says he's cringe, but Peterson has a really interesting breakdown of Trump team personality types. I recommend checking it out. I would be very interested to see that. If you could DM it to me on Twitter, if you're on Twitter, that'd be great. Or just comment it on the video afterwards. I'd be interested in seeing it. You notice, like every single time, the thing with Trump that's the most obvious is the extroverted thinking, dominant extroverted thinking. It's like he is entirely extroverted thinking. The whole like very
mail-in ballots are a bad thing.
That certainly is a problem. Mail-in ballots
in the Share Street. The constant just focus on other people's perspectives, what other people are saying, what they're saying, what this person thought, what that person did. All those things are all. He's constantly sorting the hierarchy of who's more competent, less competent. These are like things that he's just swimming in this world all the time, and he's very direct as a businessman, very blunt, just kind of states things as they are, just factually. He's like overwhelming extroverted thinking on the Jungian cognitive typing. Okay, let's move this on forward. So afterwards, after that interview, he flew up to Michigan, where he came out, and I left his walk-in off here because still got a whole bunch of stuff to go through today. Speaking of Peterson, I have a clip tomorrow on Peterson with Dawkins talking about dragons that everybody's getting wrong. So I'll include that in the story tomorrow. So he did the walk into the Undertaker's theme song, and he's got the black and gold "Make America Great Again" hat, just looking absolutely dapper, black and gold, black and gold. And this was his commentary on the interview he just finished.
I got interviewed by actually a great guy. I didn't know him too well, but I got to know him because it was the longest interview I've ever done in my life. Joe Rogan, a good guy. And it's, you know, it's quite something, and we had some other things really important. And I said, you know, we're going to get this stuff done. And my people came to me, sir, we could cancel our evening event. I'm sure the people wouldn't mind. I said, are you crazy? I'm not canceling. There's no way. I'm not canceling. There's no way. We never even... So I apologize, but you know, it's all about winning. We got to win, and we did some things today that will help us win. I think we did a lot of taping, a lot of this, a lot of that, a lot of everything.
One thing I remembered I was going to say just a minute ago is that because he's a long-form speaker, he will just tell you everything on his mind if you just let him talk long enough. That's why his rallies have been such a big thing. The people who go to his rallies like universally report that it's like just a terrific experience. He can sit here and just speak extemporaneously for 90 minutes, 2 hours, just go on and on and on. If they talk about him having the teleprompter and that he reads like 1 or 2 lines from the teleprompter and then he's off talking about other stuff, and then he comes back, reads 1 or 2 lines, then he's off talking about other stuff. It's why that whole environment is perfect for his communication style. And the people who don't like him or are inclined not to like him are by definition never going to experience him that way. But then you have the like in between people who don't really dislike him all that much, but they don't like him enough to go seek that out because they don't have a reason to. Their experience of him is every time I listen to him talk, it just kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And he just kind of has all these different little rabbit trails and whatever. But if you listen to him long enough, he has the weave. He works this weave together. He creates all these branching chains of thought, and then he pulls them all back around together again. It's masterful communication to be able, and it's incredibly agile, sharp minds to be able to remember all the stuff that he does and then tie it all back together again. So there's a really interesting phenomenon here where his communication style lends to his supporters seeing him in a completely different light than his non-supporters. Just simply because the people who are his supporters are more inclined to have listened to him for longer periods of time and started to get him and understand, like, this is why if you've listened to him for a long time, you feel like he's talking to you. Like you're sitting there kind of having a conversation in your own mind with him. Whereas if you haven't listened to him for a long time, you're not going to get him. So there's a ton of people out there who've been like obviously inoculated against liking him because of the constant media campaigns against him. But if they happen to be exposed to him in a weird environment, like talking to Theo Vaughn, like they're definitely going to listen to him talk to Joe Rogan. Like he talked to him for 3 hours. What on earth did they talk about? How could this possibly so they go and they listen to him and they're like, hold on a second. This guy's not like, if anything, you conclude this guy's not Hitler. He might be kind of kooky, but he's very obviously not like violent or angry or anything like that. He's very calm and down to earth and very grandfatherly. So having that Joe Rogan episode let's see what it's up to now. Let's see how many views it's got. I've seen some stuff. Oh, Jimmy Dore's on Tucker Carlson. That's very interesting. I've seen stuff about not being able to find it. Yeah, it comes right up for me on YouTube. 35 million views. 35 million views in 2 days. Isn't that a thing? All right. Let's keep this rocking and rolling. Now we're going to talk about the Madison Square Garden event. New York City. I've got a bunch of stuff after we watch several of these videos related to the Madison Square Garden thing. Then I've got a bunch of polling, different polling trends and how Republicans versus Democrats are turning out in various different states. And some of these are pretty surprising. So I'm not going to play this entire video. This lovely, lovely lady goes for 3 minutes. This little Chinese woman in New York City. So they had, I think they filled up Madison Square Garden, which is like, it 25,000 people or 40,000 people or somewhere in there. And then they had somewhere around another 70,000 people who are out there. And I saw from numerous people that they're walking around in Manhattan, like Times Square area, and walking around wearing a MAGA hat. And they're just getting positive feedback from people. This is in New York City. So this adorable little Chinese lady is, I think, she'd make a very good mascot.
You heard it right here, folks. 2024, folks.
Chinese, we're Chinese, first generation. We love Trump from our bottom of the heart because we know Trump is the only one can save America. Kamala is so stupid. She is so low. IQ equal no Q, no qualification to be the president. You shall stay away from that position. You already lost the position. You lost our trust. You lost our vote. You just need to go home, to stay home. You cannot do anything to save America. You are so stupid. You don't know anything. You cannot even answer any question from the camera, from all the media. How you can be on the stage to fight for America, to protect American people, to protect all the world. You are not qualified. You just need to go home. Let Trump to save America, to save the world, to put America first. If America to be strong, to be saved, and then America can save the whole world. Trump, we love you. We love you forever. Never ever surrender. Fight, fight, fight. Fight for Trump. Fight, fight, fight. Fight, fight, fight. Trump, we love you so much, Trump. You are the best president in our lifetime. We so appreciate here as the first generation.
Okay. She can stay. She can absolutely stay. Buck doesn't like her. Lady, I just said it was too spicy. China is asshole. This lady on 2X would be wild. Hey, let's give it a shot. I didn't listen to her on 2X before.
Fight for Trump. Fight. Trump, we love you so much, Trump. You are the best president in our lifetime. We so appreciate here as the first generation of the Chinese people. We are so grateful for America, for American people. We are immigrants, but we come from the front door, not from the border. Legally cross the border. We don't welcome those kind of people cross the border to come to America, to destroy America, to kill American people. We cannot allow those people to come to our country anymore. We need a president to protect our country, to save the border.
She's actually almost easier to understand that way. All right. Meanwhile, in Japan, hold on here. Let's get this to fill up the screen just a little bit more. Whoop, not that much. Meanwhile, in Japan.
Wealthy again. We will make America healthy with Bobby again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. We will make...
This is such a fascinating thing. Like, what is like a weeb inside out? Because that's what these are. You have like Japanese people. I mean, I can understand the Chinese immigrant who's like, we want America first. But how do you get the Japanese person who is like, we want America first? How did this person wind up in this way? Is this just like the weeb phenomenon, just the other way around? There's a strong Ameribu culture in Japan. I mean, I suppose as long as they recognize who's daddy, I'm here for it. All right, my daily astrolabians are really gonna appreciate this one.
Fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American. for what's right. Fight for your life. When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside, you gotta take a stand. It don't hurt to hide.
Doing the Trump dance. Dude can barely walk. It has never been a better time to be a chud. Oh man, how can you even compare these two campaigns? You've got the big thing for Walz and AOC is sitting here pretending to play Madden. Meanwhile, you have this. Vashti says the left has no clue what is happening right now. That's because they're not real Americans. Oh. Shout out to Axios, remote fitness coaching, in the chat. He says, what if I told you that based on CNN's framing, Hitler wasn't even Hitler? Uh-oh. Speaking of Axios, let me tell you guys about Axios. The current moment we live in is one that prioritizes the inverse of whatever makes men strong, healthy, and capable. The quality of our food continues to decline. Plastics construct everything around us, and the virtues of beauty and strength are continuously denigrated by spiteful mutants. To sustain ourselves, we have to take a pathway of action that cultivates and revitalizes our spirit. Return to being builders of culture instead of consumers of a cheap synthetic excuse for life. That pathway will require an adoption of physical discipline. And this is what Axios Fitness Coaching seeks to help bring about. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios offers standalone training programs as well as individual coaching options should your needs require a more specific approach. So they have their standalone options, and then if you need something tailored to you directly, they can do that as well. Axios is best known for the Training Club, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to take action against the decay of modernity. So you can't say that it's because of your bad diet, your bad nutrition. They'll help you get that fixed. You can't say because, you can't do it, you can't keep up with it because they're going to hold you accountable. And you can't say, I don't know how, because they're going to teach you the techniques. By joining the club, you get access to over 20 different programs that can be personally tailored to your strength levels, available equipment, and injury history. By completing the intake survey, you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any of their other services. It's long past time we take our health back into our own hands. Without action, there is only degeneration. So I'm going to drop the link to the intake survey here in the chat for you guys. Any of you who would like... Hold on. What's it telling me to close? No, I don't want to close anything. I'm good. All right. I'm going to drop the link here for the intake survey. Axios intake survey. I'm going to pin this. It's here in the chat. So you guys can fill that out and see what they can do to help you. Or if you'd like to get 5 free training modules that they've put together, they're offering that special deal. You get the 5 free training modules to anybody who's in the King Pill Discord, signed up at the Lord or the King tier. So sorry, peasants. You got to upgrade. you can upgrade. You get those 5 free training modules, and you get to download their app that you can use. Or you could just fill out the intake survey, which is in the chat. It's also in the description of this video if you're watching here later on. So go get your physique maxing project underway, and let the boys at Axios Fitness Coaching help you out. Very much appreciate them supporting our show, and we are happy to support them. And JD himself is here in the chat. All right, let's keep this rocking and rolling here. So you remember the guy that I'm pretty sure this is the same guy. It's like the same story, so I'm pretty sure it's the same dude. I played this video of him a few weeks back. They interviewed him in the crowd at one of Trump's rallies. And here is the very same guy up on the stage at Madison Square Garden.
On November 20th, 1974, my father suffered a massive heart attack and died. I went to this Q Forest school, the same school as our president, Trump, attended. 3 days after my father's burial, there was a knock on the door. One school morning, about 7 a.m. I answered the door. There was a very distinguished gentleman standing in front of me, and he said, when I opened the door, "Kid, call your mom down, please." I called upstairs to my mom. "Mom, there's some guy here, please come down." And she came down. And he said to her, "I'm very sorry to hear about Joseph Brem's death. I'm Fred Trump, Don's father." And my mom said, "Yes, I know Donald Trump went to Q Forest School." He said, "Yes, Mrs. Rem, but what you probably don't know is that I'm still on the Board of Trustees. And this morning, I let Philip Rogers, who's the headmaster at Q Forest School, know that from this day forward, I, Fred Trump, out of my own pocket, is going to be paying for your 3 children's tuition at Q Forest, because I don't want the kids to have to go back into the public school system." Now, who would do that except the President Trump's father? And the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree.
Have you guys listened to Stormy Waters talking to Pete Quinones about the so-called robber barons? He talked about how what a good man of means would do is anyone who worked for him, if something happened to one of his employees, vendors, someone who depended upon him for his salary, if something happened to him, then it was their responsibility to take in the children of the men who worked for you and take care of them, provide for them, make sure that they get to go to the same schools as you do, or as your children do. That's what this is right here. This is American aristocracy in action. And see the impact that it makes. Speaking of American aristocrats,
I'm not just MAGA. I'm dark, gothic MAGA.
Gen X and millennials are so happy. So here's more Elon at Madison Square Garden. It looks like it might actually happen. Now, I don't mean the creation of a government efficiency department. I mean calling it the Department of Government Efficiency. They're doing it more and more. I think it may actually happen.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to introduce the co-founder with me of the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, Madison Square Garden. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the greatest capitalist in the history of the United States of America, Elon Musk.
Wait for it.
So, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, the memes have been so good from this. Oh man, go back to yourself like 5 years ago and tell past you that that there's going to be a government commission called Doge headed by Elon Musk. Inject the Elon scream into my veins. He's such a goofball. Here's one of the things he had to say.
And then I'm getting out of here because this is your stage. But we set up Doge.
This one's kind of quiet. Let me know how the audio is. It sounds like this one's kind of quiet, so I'm going to pull it up.
Yes. How much do you think we can rip out of this wasted $6.5 trillion Harris-Biden budget?
Well, I think we can do at least $2 trillion.
Yeah!
$2 trillion.
Yes.
$2 trillion.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're being taxed. You're being taxed. All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, it either becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that. We're going to get the government off your back and out of your pocketbook. And America's just not question.
Elon scream is the new dragon energy. Yeah. Apparently Dogecoin is up significantly in the last 2 days. Imagine if there's actually a Doge. I wonder if Dogecoin is going to become a proxy for like the effectiveness of the Department of Government Efficiency. I wonder if there's any way that there's going to be a correlation there. Like the more the Department of Government Efficiency does, the more popular it is, the more people talk about it, the more people are going to invest in Doge. How much galaxy braining is there going on? How much 4D chess is happening with Elon with Doge? Did Elon plan this all from the beginning? Is this why he dipped his toe into Doge back in the day? Yeah, the CIA pizza index. Yeah. This is interesting from Andrew. He says, it's not that the Japanese are saying make America great again. He's a symbol of masculinity and greatness. They're wanting Japan to embody again. Yeah, I can see that. Okay. Still got tons of stuff to go through, so we're going to keep plowing along. Yet another example of noblesse oblige. Trump just announced a genius new policy.
And I'm announcing a new policy today that I will support a tax credit for family caregivers who take care of a parent or a loved one. It's about time that they were recognized, right? They add so much to our country and are never spoken of, ever, 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 but they're going to be spoken of now. Thank you all very much. I'll also make...
This is significant. First of all, because you know who's going to be hit hardest by this is really shitty senior care, like nursing homes and really shitty senior care facilities and hospitals. And this is like detaching late in life care in particular from the medical system. This is incentivizing families to actually start taking care of each other on a generational level. It's providing a massive financial incentive to do it. What it's also doing is he's teased the idea, he talked about it with Rogan, he's teased the idea of just abolishing the income tax altogether. And effectively what he's doing by creating more and more exemptions is he's abolishing the income tax without abolishing the income tax. So he doesn't actually have to abolish the income tax. He just has to create a tax credit or make certain things tax-free enough times across enough different vectors that the income tax effectively disappears. This is good government. I'm very happy with the government doing this sort of thing. So you guys have probably heard all about the about Tony Hinchcliffe's set. And I think that this is a whole big hullabaloo about nothing. And I'm not just saying the people who are pearl clutching about it being a bad joke. I'm saying the people who are pearl clutching about the people pearl clutching about it being a bad joke. Yeah, like, can you possibly think this is going to make a difference? You have the Kamala campaign who's like, oh man, we really got to figure out a way to reach out to the men. We can't connect with the men at all. I know. Let's have Tim Walz and AOC go play Madden and talk about Project 2025. That'll get them. And then the next thing they do is, hey, let's cancel Tony Hinchcliffe. Oh, that's going to work well. Yeah, that's really going to get the men on board. For every person, so first of all, if you're thinking about the potential demographics who could be affected by this, the biggest number of people who are going to be affected by this are people who weren't going to vote for Trump in the first place and never would have voted for Trump in the first place. The next demographic is going to be the people who are like, oh, that's kind of, oh man, I really don't like how that makes me feel. And they're going to be offset by the people who are like, that's freaking hilarious. I can't believe that Trump has Kill Tony at his represented at his rally in Madison Square Garden. This is super awesome. If you are squealing about this, you got to go in the crystals. There is nobody. There is no significant effect that's going to be had through this. It was a freaking funny joke. Now, I don't have that joke here because it's all over the place. I'm sure you probably already heard it. This one I actually thought was even funnier.
In Texas, stuff is really, really crazy. We're right there by a wide open border. Where are my proud Latinos at tonight? You guys see what I mean? It's wide open. There's so many of them. In Texas, stuff.
That, I think, was the funniest joke that he told. Andrew says, Matt, if you get rid of the shitty old person homes, you would devastate the left's voter fortification efforts as well. That's a really good point. Yes. I wonder if Trump has someone in his ear who's proposing these sorts of things for this sort of reason. Or if he's just stumbling upon them. This is an interesting thought here from a guy who makes regular appearances here on the show. In tweet form, Eric Doherty says, were there any legitimate protests at the Trump rally in NYC? Seriously, where were they? Normally they would be camped out for hours. Antifa, BLM, et cetera, et cetera. It used to be everywhere. This is a very good point. All of these mobs, where as has been well documented, they have them easily on a string. It takes a couple of Zoom calls to boot them up and deploy them. Why aren't they deploying them? The only reason would be, number one, they don't have them on a string anymore. Or number two, they recognize that deploying them will only help Trump's cause. Both of those are a white pill. Or too many of their rank and file just aren't incentivized anymore. These are like the only possible options there could be. And that was a good one. He said, we vote next week. God voted 3 months ago when Biden got COVID and Trump survived a bullet. So I think there's a lot of signal to this, that there were no protests. Like the Democrats posted, like Trump complimented Hitler or something on the outside of it. Yeah, whoop-de-frickin-do. Nobody cares. There is no street protests and violence being mounted against these different rallies. And there was 70,000 people out on the street outside the Madison Square Garden. No brawls. No protesters there yelling at them, screaming at them, like nothing. If they happened, you would have known about it. Why is this? Does this tell us anything about the future? Maybe. Obviously, they could just spin them back up at some point, presumably. But I'm beginning to suspect that there may not even be. Everyone's forecasting the roaming mobs of violent terrorists and stuff. And I don't know. I don't even know if that's going to happen. Here's another prominent Democrat breaking the ranks. I mean, he's broken the ranks multiple times, but he's doubling down now. NYC Mayor Eric Adams rips Democrats for comparing Trump to Hitler, defends Trump for holding a rally at Madison Square Garden.
You know, I have been had those terms hurled at me by some political leaders in the city. using terms like Hitler and fascist. My answer is no. I know what Hitler has done, and I know what a fascist regime looks like. I think, as I've called over and over again, that the level of conversation, I think we could all dial down the temperature. And I've heard people say that the former president should not be able to have a rally in Madison Square Garden. I strongly disagree. This is America. This is New York. And I think it's important that we allow individuals to exercise their right to get their message clear to New Yorkers. And our job as a city and as a police department is to make sure they can do that in a peaceful way. I think that we must be extremely cautious. The heat we turn up today, pre-election, is going to have to be the heat we're going to have to govern in. And I think we need to show a level of respectable communication. And so when people called me fascist and other terminologies, I didn't like it. And I don't think it's fitting to anyone to state that the former president is equal to being Hitler.
The black mayor of New York. Like, he's on the outs with his own party, obviously. So he's looking for new friends, but this is how it works. This is how it works. This is how Trump becomes normalized. All of these people get thrown out of the party and wind up just lending all of their support and credibility, whatever credibility he has. He's got credibility from plenty of people, just lending it right over to Trump. This is how he gets normalized. And continuing on this subject, old Chuck Dirk himself says Sundar Pichai called Trump to tell him that his working the fry machine at McDonald's was the most searched item on the internet. This is something Trump mentioned during the Rogan interview. Sundar Pichai, being the head of Google, said that was the most searched item on the internet. Jeff Bezos just intervened and forced the Washington Post to forego endorsing a political candidate for POTUS for the first time since 1988. Mark Zuckerberg called Trump badass for rising to his feet after getting shot and shouting, "Fight, fight, fight." They're either all trying to keep up with Elon Musk or they're trying to get ahead of something they see coming. Correct. This is what we've been saying. Tim Cook also called Trump last week to complain about EU regulators. Why are they all doing this? They have, of all the people in the world, Sundar Pichai, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and Tim Cook probably have more data at their disposal. Elon Musk, maybe. They have more data at their disposal gauging public sentiment. And they're all moving in the same direction. Related to this, Jeff Bezos, New York Post reported today that Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos has reportedly given the newspaper a mandate to add more conservative opinion writers at the paper. Now, obviously, these conservatives are probably going to be, I don't know, Jonah Goldberg. But it's a signal nonetheless. The Black Horse here said Jeff Bezos challenging the old Yarvin hypothesis that he can't alter the viewpoint of the paper by exercising his nominal power in real time. Talk about a perfect natural experiment to test a specific claim by a political analyst. And this is from There Is No AI Risk, May 15 of 2021. It's an excellent essay for many of its other comments, but we're about to see this one tested in real time. This is what Yarvin said. What can Jeff Bezos do with his $200 billion? Well, it turns out he can buy the Washington Post, the world's second most important newspaper. That ain't nothing. But can he tell the Post what to say? As though he was W.R. Hearst? LOL. Jeff Bezos does not really own the Post. He sponsors it as if it was the Indy 500. He sponsored the Indy 500 and decided the cars, if he sponsored the Indy 500 and decided the car should have 5 wheels and a rocket exhaust, and also it should go farther and become the Indy 2500, they would tell him to go pound sand. If you started telling the news desk what to write and cover, like Hearst or even like Pinch Sulzberger, they would laugh at him and quit. Pinch's heir sadly seems to have ceded that power to the New York Times Slack. Like many a weak monarch of a waning dynasty, letting his authority decay into an oligarchy. Hard to get it back, bro. Jeff Bezos could destroy the Post. Since journalism is redundant and the Post is only number 2, this would have zero effect on the world. There is no way he can use the Post. Anyone talking about the Bezos blog is either ignorant or a fool or a fraud. Now, in Yarvin's defense, I think that this was absolutely true in 2021. However, I don't think it's true now. I'm going to go a little further. I think he says we're about to see this one tested in real time, and I think we know how it's going to go. We are about to see it tested, and I think that he's going to be perfectly successful. There was an interesting Yarvin conversation just recently on The Forge. It was a European conservative or something like that. Probably one of the best Yarvin interviews that I've ever seen. It was very good. I still enjoy Yarvin. I enjoy his way of looking at things, and I think he's generally right about most things. And he also is very he's very Straussian, and a lot of people don't recognize that, or the Straussianism makes them uncomfortable, so they just kind of spaz out about him. But he definitely speaks in code for good reason sometimes. That was a really good conversation. You have to sit through another recitation of FDR's speech, but I still enjoy it. This one from Mark Halperin. I don't think any voter really cares about this, but in elite political and media circles, it's all anyone is talking about.
Okay. Now, none of the things I've mentioned, as big as some might seem to you, are close to as big as the biggest political story of the day. And the reason I know it's the biggest political story of the day is I was in a diner in Green Bay. I spent the day in Green Bay going to diners, talking to undecided voters in Green Bay diners. And I flew back to New York. And all anybody was talking about in Green Bay was the Washington Post decision not to endorse in the presidential race. I kid. I don't think any voter really cares about this. But in elite political and media circles, is all anybody's talking about. And I see that there are some underlying issues here involving freedom of the press, Trump derangement syndrome, the woke takeover of many of our major news organizations, tradition, Jeff Bezos. There are a lot of big themes here that you could argue connect to something that the public would care about or should care about. But this is a classic story that elites care about. I really don't care that much about it. Maybe I'm not an elite. Elites care about it. It's all that's in my inbox. If you look at Twitter and journalists, and this, if it weren't a Friday, my goodness, this would go on forever. Media reporters are not always great about working Saturdays and Sundays. So it'll be all over the news in elite media circles for the next couple of days and maybe beyond. But you would think that the Washington Post did something truly profound. And for the woke people in the newsroom, it is truly profound that they're not going to endorse Kamala Harris. But again, I bring this up to say the world is going mad because we're getting down to the end.
Andrew says, imagine if WAPO hired Yarvin. Oh my God. This must happen. This must happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it must happen. For the absolute cosmic deliciousness of it all, for the number of heads across the spectrum that would explode. We need this to happen. WAPO hiring Yarvin would just be the best posting day of all time. Colin Ross says, if Bezos is skating to where the puck is going, he'll take the number one spot. Yes. Yeah, he would. And he may have that sense. More reactions from unexpected sources. This is becoming less unexpected now because Cuomo's starting to drop this on the regular. He's really dialing in his messaging.
You got to stop thinking that the people who support Trump are like Trump, that they speak like Trump, that they act like Trump. They don't. They want to hire Trump to do a dirty job. They want him to be a virus to the political corpus. They want him to disrupt, to destroy, to demean those that they disrespect and dislike, the system that they distrust and despise. They want someone to do what they believe has been done to them and that they cannot do themselves. That's why they don't care that he exhibits terrible behavior, because they're putting him into a terrible place. If you're sending somebody into the jungle, do you really care if they're a savage? You see what I'm saying? And you have to understand it that way. You may not agree, you may not accept, you may not like, but that's what it is. You gotta
now, sorry for the volume on that one. Some of the clips were really low and I forgot to pull it back down. In anticipation of a potential loud one. What was I going to say? Cuomo. Oh, obviously, as I was saying earlier, I don't endorse what he's saying per se. Like, I don't think that Trump is actually that way. I do think that a lot of people do see him that way, and they like him in spite of it. That's like a feature to them. But this is just a continuing of the drumbeat. I probably won't do a lot more Chris Cuomo clips unless he really says something out of pocket. But you start getting the idea. More and more of these libs are moving to the accepting of Trump stage. Even Cenk, old Cenk, the Young Turks, was talking about how Trump's came across as very presidential on Joe Rogan. Even Cenk. This vibe shift's not going away. And I've got something about, got a whole bunch of stuff on the election, on votes and such. And I got a clip here at the end of this segment from a good friend of the show, Buck, talking to Charles Haywood about what happens if they do fortify it. I agree wholeheartedly with everything he says. But first of all, let's talk about turnout. So Harry Enton, a Jew, says this is host of CNN's Margins of Error, a podcast about statistical stories. He says, hot take, turnout may drop in 2024. Fewer voters say they're certain to vote or enthusiastic about voting than in 2020. Why? Voters feel less is on the line. Fewer say 2024 is the most important election of their life than said the same about 2020. Makes each vote count more.
Yeah, why might turnout end up being lower? I'll note that the early vote, when you combine it with the mail votes, actually fewer people have voted so far through this point before Election Day than 4 years ago. But it's not just that, because I want you to take a look at feelings towards voting. And this isn't the polling, right? Remember, 2020 had record turnout. Feelings towards voting, certain to vote. Back in 2020 at this point, 88% of registered voters said they were certain to vote. Where are we today? It's just 81%, John. It's a 7-point drop. But that's not the only polling metric in which I'm looking at. How about extremely motivated to vote? At this point in 2020, it was 73%. You look now, it's just 65%. Again, a high single-digit drop. 8 points in this particular case. But it's not just the polling, right? Remember, in 2022, the midterm turnout fell compared to 4 years before that in 2018. And that Washington top 2 primary, right, which is often predictive of what's going to occur in the general election back in August, the turnout there fell versus 4 years ago. So when you're looking at polling, when you're looking at these different metrics, all of them look just weaker compared to 4 years ago. But to me, the polling here, which is oftentimes quite predictive, is the most important nugget, where we see fewer people saying they're certain to vote and fewer people saying they're extremely motivated to vote, John.
Clear trends there. Any sense of why, Harry?
Why? You know, every single year, people say this is the most important election ever, right? Well, they actually polled this, the most important election of my lifetime. Back in 2020, look at this, 74% of registered voters said that, yes, it was the most important election of their lifetime. This time around, it's actually less. It's 65%. Now, that's still a pretty impressive number, but it's a drop of nearly 10 points of Americans or registered voters saying it's the most important election of their lifetime, despite the fact that we have all these politicians out there saying it. Voters are actually slightly less likely to agree with them, John.
All right, so the zillion-dollar question here is, if turnout does drop, which candidate does that help or hurt more?
Which candidate does it help or hurt more? This is the million-dollar question, and the million-dollar answer is one that probably satisfies neither side. Harris versus Trump margin. Lower turnout may not benefit either side. You know, if you look at the broad universe of registered voters, you see Harris up by a point, well within the margin of error nationally. If you look at likely voters, it's still Harris by a point. Now, what's interesting here, of course, if you look historically, normally Republicans actually benefit with lower turnout. If you looked at the polling earlier this year, as the Democratic coalition becomes more and more educated, it would have said that Harris would have done better with slightly lower turnout. But in the polling right now, it does not seem to me that either side would necessarily benefit. I think the question ultimately is, though, given how tight this is, who's going to get those few extra voters off the sidelines? On that question, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm smiling because, you know, this is such a close election. Everyone's looking for some way to tell which way it's going to trend, this way or that way. And even on this, there's just no way to tell.
There's no way. There's no way. The close election continues on. Only 8 days to go.
Harold, thank you very much.
Thank
you. What this is all indicative of, in my opinion, and I'll make a justification for it, is that the election is not close at all. Here's why. So, let me go back here. First of all, filter all of this through the respondents to something like this. What type of voter are they most likely to be? What's their voting inclination most likely to be? All of these polls all oversample Democrats and the types of people who are more likely to vote to be more establishment friendly by dint of the fact that it's someone responding to a political poll. These are going to be older people. They're going to be more establishment people. They're going to be more Democratic. These are all characteristics of the people who are being polled. So what we're seeing here is going to be something that is present more. This is data reflecting the sentiment of people who are used to voting regularly, who are more invested in the system regularly. What this is not reporting on is people who are less invested, who aren't as likely to vote. Low propensity voters, you might say. Those people are overwhelmingly likely not to be captured in this data. Just keep that in mind there. That low propensity voters are likely not to be captured in this data. The next point is, let me think about this here. So you've got the decrease. Oh, this is also likely affected by the fraud in 2020, or the apparent fraud, maybe I have to say, the apparent fraud in 2020. What's the consequence of that? Well, people are going to feel less invested in voting. They're going to see it as less useful. There's like, what's the point? It's just going to get fixed one way or the other anyway, either way, so whatever. That there's some element of that at play here. But there's also is like indicative of a like this is the justification now for covering up what happened in 2020 on some level. It provides the justification for a narrative that says, oh, well, the voter enthusiasm is down. Versus like there's fewer votes because he didn't have a whole bunch of stuffed ballot boxes. Now, keep in mind the thing I said about low propensity voters. This type of polling data here is not going to necessarily capture the sentiment of the low propensity voter. And if you think about this, someone who's regularly invested, tracking what's happening in the political world, if they see 2020 as some sort of a rig, they may be less inclined to vote in 2024. Whereas someone who wasn't really involved at all, they may be kind of like, whatever, I don't know that it was rigged or whatever. I just sort of a default normie American who's just like, yeah, whatever happened in 2020, I wasn't paying that close of attention. And here I am now ready to vote. So keep that in mind, the low propensity voter, because we got some, I got some stuff on that here shortly. On this one here from NBC, Donald Trump leads Kamala Harris among voters who didn't turn out in the 2022 midterms or the 2020 election. So the low propensity voters, according to this data, Trump is ahead of Kamala.
Look at it this way. From our NBC polling, a merge of all of our data, those who voted in the 2020 presidential election and the 2022 midterms, Harris with a 6-point lead, the most reliable block of voters. Those who only voted in the 2020 presidential, that's where Trump opens up a lead. And then those who didn't vote in either, that's where Trump has his biggest advantage over Harris. Are they actually going to vote this time around? Huge question mark. Another way to look at it, we ask folks, scale of 1 to 10, your interest in this election. Again, look at this. Those who rate it the highest, 9 or 10, races tied, 7 or 8, pretty high. Harris is ahead. Here's where Trump cleans up. Those who say 1 to 6. So again, Trump relying on a coalition that, if they turn out, could be powerful for him, Kristen, but that's a big if. Look at.
Okay, so continuing with this. Another one from Seth Keshel. Key voter registration shift since 2020 as of 10/27. So as of yesterday. Florida from 2020 to 2024 has moved Republicans 7.5%. So it's gone from 0.8% blue to 7.5% red. Iowa has gone from 1% red to 10.4% red, which is predictive of Wisconsin. So what is this, a 9.5-point move? Arizona has made a 3.8% move. Nevada from D 4.7 to D 0.8. So a 3.9% move. Pennsylvania has gone from D plus 7.5 to D plus 3.3, which is predictive of Michigan. Virginia has gone from D 5.3 to D 1.4. New Hampshire has gone from D 1.3 to R 4.4. Got some more on New Hampshire here in a little bit. And then lastly, this is, what is this? Oh, this is New Mexico. Has gone from D 13.9 to D 11.7. So this is voter registration. More in Pennsylvania, also from Seth Keshel. If Trump runs as far right of the Democrat registration advantage as he did in 2020, he will win the state by about 4.5%. here's what the map looks like. So if you have the Democrat registration advantage and Trump performed to the right of it. If he maintains that same ratio in 2024, he'll win the state by about 4.5%. More from Eric Doherty on Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Republicans out-requested Democrats for mail-in ballots again. So Republicans, 47,844, Democrats, 43,443. They also only trailed Democrats in returns by just 9,000 ballots. So they out-requested them, and they're just behind them on returns. The Democratic firewall is down to 381.95, plus 89.01 over the weekend. Firewall growth is screeching to a near halt lately. And what the firewall is the Dems basically want to have 500,000 votes banked before Election Day because historically, Election Day turnout vastly favors Republicans. So if the Dems have 500,000 votes banked before Election Day, they'll likely be able to carry the state. North Carolina early voting. This from David Chapman. On this date in 2020 versus 2024. So on this date in 2020, there was just over 1.2 million Democrat ballots cast and 885,000 Republican ballots cast. This same date, now look at the numbers. The numbers are significantly lower, but look at where they're lower. They're vastly lower for Democrats, and they're slightly lower for Republicans. Vastly lower for Democrats and slightly lower for Republicans, and Republicans are ahead. Now, conceivably, these could be Republicans who are voting for Kamala, but that's kind of hard to believe. I'm sure there's some, but assuming that there's massively low Democrat enthusiasm, and yet there's lots of Republicans voting for Kamala. That's very hard to square. And this one gets a little more into the nitty-gritty. Christian Haynes, this is a good guy to follow. He's one of our guys, and he's been doing great work on tracking ballot data. He says Pennsylvania mail-in ballots by voter propensity. This is after excluding everyone who voted on Election Day in 2020. As you can see, one can hardly argue with a straight face that Republicans have an enthusiasm problem. Their highest percentage of mail-in ballots are coming from voters who are least likely to show up. So what this 404, 304, 204, 104, 04 means is people who the last four elections, how many of them did the people vote in? So of the people who voted in the last four elections, who voted in all four of the last four elections, 3 of 4 people have already returned mail-in ballots for the Democrats. So 3 out of 4. Compare that to Republicans, where 1 out of 5 have returned ballots. That means there's a whole bunch that are still out there for Republicans. And look at how the numbers just crater for the Democrats. So 0 out of the last 4 is vastly lower. Whereas for the Republicans, it's higher. So again, low propensity Republican voters are turning out more than high propensity Republican voters on a relative basis. And here's the nominal figures for all mail-in ballots so far. 62.3%. So this is, if you add up 62, 31, and 6.77, if you add all those up, you're going to get 100%. So of the 4 out of 4s, that's the way to read this here. Of the 4 out of 4s, this represents 100% of the 4 out of 4 people. And then the 3 out of 4 people is going to be 58.7 plus 30.75 plus 10.54. So Democrats historically are early voters and mail-in ballots. This is all mail-in ballots. So Democrats are historically overwhelmingly toward mail-in ballots and early voting, whereas Republicans are overwhelmingly towards voting on Election Day. So these numbers strongly indicate that Pennsylvania is going to be an absolute bloodbath for Democrats. And if I come back here, he says what this is indicating is that we have an enthusiasm edge and we're picking up the most amount of ground from voters who didn't show up in 2020 or in 2022. The idea that the only reason Republicans are doing better in the early vote is because they're moving their Election Day voters over to voting early is a myth. This has been the big cope from all the shit libs on Twitter, who are saying, well, all that's happening is Trump is pushing early voting, so all of his voters, instead of voting on election day, are just voting early. But that's not the case, because the lowest propensity voters, the people who don't vote typically, are the ones who are voting now, which means they're likely adding to the total. This isn't absolute, because it could be that early voting just totally craters, and all the regular Republican voters who vote in every election are just not turning up at all. That's theoretically possible, but not likely. Because I have even more data in Pennsylvania that I'm probably going to tack onto this post, because when we compare the voting propensity to 2020, the numbers are truly astonishing. I think Trump is favored to win Pennsylvania at this point. Here's California early voting. 11 days to go, 2020 versus 2024. So at this point, 11 days before Election Day in 2020, there were 3.7 million Democrat ballots cast to 1.5 million Republicans. They've got 1.5 million Republican voters, but they're absolutely dwarfed by the Democrats. Look at it now. The gap is still immense. It's still 500,000 people. There's no way that Trump is winning California. But notice the difference in turnout here for Democrats versus Republicans. Republicans are down like 40% maybe ish, whereas Democrats are down like 65%. A large part of this is because of mail-in ballots. In COVID, you had the huge mail-in ballot effort. That's not there anymore. Here's Virginia from Rasmussen. It has Harris up +2. And the margin of error is 3%. And another poll with Harris below 50 in Virginia. I still think, so the last guy that I showed you here, Christian Hands, he's done some really deep analysis, and he said that it's very unlikely, based on the numbers he's seeing, that Trump is actually going to carry Virginia, that it would take a legendary performance there. And he's absolutely one of our guys, but he's just not going to engage in total cope. He said he doesn't think it's going to happen. He's not ruling it out, but he doesn't think it's going to happen. But man, if Harris is +2 in Virginia, based on a Rasmussen poll, that race is going to be really freaking close. And if Trump carries Virginia, then it's like the implication of Trump carrying Virginia is that there's other states that are going to come along with it, and picking up those extras at 16 or 13 electoral votes, I can't remember which, would be massive. This is his crystal ball model for VA, for Virginia early voting as of 10/28. So Dems are at about 59%, Republicans are at 41%. And you can see the absolute numbers favor the Democrats significantly. Now, again, this can be offset if Trump is, again, performing really well with low propensity people now who are going out and they're voting early, and then he absolutely crushes Election Day. That would be the way that he would win Virginia. But I still think that's in the cards. And here's comparing. So on this day in 2021, Dems had 63.47%. In 2022, 63.19%. So basically the same. They're down to 61%. So just all across the board, there's major voter enthusiasm signals for the Democrats. Here's Nevada from Victor Jokes. He says, here's the story of Nevada early voting. D's aren't showing up. R's have already turned out 51.7% of the number of R's who cast ballots in 2020. So of total Republicans who cast ballots in 2020, almost 52% of them have already turned up. This is before Election Day. For Democrats, it's at 41.6%. The biggest change is in mail. So far, Republicans have returned 57.5% of the mail ballots R's cast in 2020. For D's, it's 43.3%. So they're just lagging behind on every metric in virtually every state. What it looks like is massive voter enthusiasm dip for Kamala corresponded to a high turnout in low propensity voters for Trump, which leaves Election Day as the big question. Do you somehow get low propensity GOP voters turning out way more than expected, and yet low enthusiasm on Election Day among GOP voters? That seems really improbable to me. All right, those are all the numbers that I've got so far. This is an update on the story that we talked about on yesterday's episode of the voter registration scandal that happened in Luzerne County. Scott Pressler is the one that all the libs have been blaming for it. He says, "Scoop, major breaking story. At the most recent Luzerne County Board of Elections meeting, manager Romilda Crocamo revealed that Beth McBride dropped off and dumped a numerous amount of applications. Most of them were dated in June. They were delivered to the Bureau of Election on the last day of registration." This sounds like that batch that they picked out of, it was like 4,500 registrations or something like that. So who's Beth McBride? Beth McBride was the acting director of elections when Luzerne County ran out of paper on election day in 2022. Recently, Lancaster County uncovered a voter registration fraud operation. It was 2,500 applications, the majority of which are fraudulent, were turned in on or near the deadline, just like Luzerne, and are linked to an organization that began efforts in June. I'm calling for an immediate investigation into the numerous amount of applications turned into the Luzerne Bureau of Elections on Monday, October 21st. Now, if he was implicated in this in any sort of way, do you think he would be publicly calling for an immediate investigation? Contact Luzerne District Attorney Samuel M. Sanguidolce and demand that he investigate. The details mimic a current investigation in Lancaster County. After contacting the DA, contact your elected officials in the Pennsylvania State House and State Senate and demand they bring attention to this. How many other counties received a massive amount of voter registration applications on the deadline that are dated back to June? So this is something that 26.4 million views. Elon boosted it. I would imagine that this is going to get a lot of political pressure applied to it. So now let's hear what the shampoo warlord has to say about, but what if they cheat? Shout out to the ever dashing, ridiculously handsome Buck Johnson and the equally dashing and ridiculously handsome Charles Haywood. Here's what he has to say.
Everybody remembers in 2020 when they stole the election, kind of baldly, Trump's response was to surround himself by total incompetence and clowns who were not well funded. And he was, of course, betrayed by people like McConnell and the Republican establishment. And none of that's going to happen now for two reasons. First of all, the Republican establishment is more Trumpian and knows on which side its bread is buttered if it's not. But most importantly is the Musk. I mean, if you're Elon Musk, you literally have to, I mean, I hate to use the word literally, I shouldn't use that. You have to be prepared to spend billions of dollars to expose fraud if it occurs, because you bet everything on this, and your life goals will never be achieved, and you will end up in jail if you don't do that. So, and he's already started doing smart things like handing out bounties to people. So when they cheat, and he says, well, I'll offer $5 million to whoever can get me documentary proof of fraud, I mean, that's pretty powerful. I mean, even if you're a wholehearted Democratic partisan who was involved in the cheating, you're like, well, $5 million. $5 million is $5 million.
Yeah.
And so I think that even if the cheating is decisive in the sense that they declare Harris the winner, that's unlikely to hold up. But that, of course, creates its own form of chaos. But we can be certain that whatever the result of the election is on election day or right after election day, we're going to be getting lots of chaos. Just a question of the vectors of that chaos.
Yes.
I think that's very well put. Make sure you listen to this full episode when it drops tomorrow, Tuesday, 10/29. I can't wait to listen to this one to hear the whole thing. But I think he's exactly correct. And by all available evidence, Elon and all of his surrogates are preparing significantly for this sort of possibility. I've heard some people saying recently about how like Laura Trump came in and just gutted all the GOPs. There's like not doing any work on sussing out voter fraud, and they're just like ready to just lay over. I'm like, what freaking world are you living in? How are you this retarded still? They're very obviously, they've been preparing for this for a really long time. They've got all sorts of different cases that are in process right now, and they've got a tremendous amount of money positioned and ready to dump into ensuring that something like this gets pushed through. And what's going to become really clear is that if you have Elon and all these other prominent celebrities and everything who have staked their reputation to this, there's no way that a Kamala government is going to be able to govern with any sort of legitimacy without the use of explicit hard power, which they are constitutionally incapable of doing. So there's going to be no confidence in her. Nobody's going to believe in her domestically or internationally. She's going to be a complete lame duck. And the federal government itself is going to be not taken seriously. It'll be taken seriously with Trump there, which is why the incentives are not going to be, I'm still predicting that there's going to be a massive amount of lawfare. I'm sticking to my numbers. 50% chance that Trump is elected after a bunch of stuff goes through the courts. 48% chance he wins outright on election day and people just accept it. And 2% there's some kind of hanky-panky and things go completely sideways, which would include, unmentionable things. But I think that there just isn't going to be the reason why I think Trump comes out on the other end of any sort of major lawfare campaign or constitutional crisis is because he's going to project a lot more stability and confidence and ability to actually act competently and coherently within the structure of the system than will Kamala. And so people are just inevitably just going to align with him. That's why it's already happening now. All right, I've got 7 more tabs here. And every single one of them is a video. So this first one is one of the most based things that I have ever heard a man say in a 60 Minutes interview. This is Tom Homan, head of ICE, during Trump's family separation policy, being interviewed by Cecilia Vega.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is that worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
We have...
You can tell that these responses are edited together. They're doing their thing where they kind of chop it up because the cuts between her question and his answer a couple times is awkward. They just had to leave that in there. What a man. Of course there is. Just deport them together. Think about this. This poor woman is sitting down, putting her questions together, and she thinks she's going to pin him to the wall with this one. He's like, just deport them together. I think we need to petition Antonio Brown to make this man crack of the day. Meanwhile, this is the sort of thing that the Harris campaign surrogates are putting out. White Men for Harris are running this ad. It's not satire. It's sincerely from them. They want people to share it because it'll help Kamala Harris win, or so they say. Vulgar, I apologize for posting such filth, but it's who they are. Understand it. This is from Cernovich. Look at this. Like, it's not just the illegal ones that got to go, man. It's not just the immigrants. A lot of them need to go.
Oh! Sorry, you can't do that.
What the hell, man? How'd you get in here?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we're banning porn nationwide.
You can't tell me what to do. Get out of my bedroom, you creep!
I won the last election, so it's my decision. I'm just gonna watch and make sure you don't finish illegally.
Based, in fact. I saw someone pointed out that, I don't know if remember if it was in the replies here. Vote for Kamala so you can jerk off. There was something that, I don't remember where it was. Someone said that that they completely miss the whole culture with this because where men are moving right now is anti-corn. And they're more likely producing an ad like this for a large number of young men is more likely to make Trump seem even cooler. It looks like a wimpy little soy boy. Yeah, get away from me. You're so rude. Get out of my room. And a base congressman. Of course, it's funny. If you compared that, this face here, this physiognomy, this is not a Republican. This guy would never be elected as a Republican. This is a Democrat, old man. These people have, like, they live in the pods already. They have no idea what the real world is like. They're already in the pods. Oh, I didn't realize I didn't share the... Here, this guy. This is not a Republican face. You've seen the composites of, like, the Republican, all the Republican congressmen, and then the composite face of all the Democratic congressmen. This looks like a Democrat. It does not look like a Republican. So here's an interesting thing from Robert Kennedy. I had a clip from Robert Kennedy talking about this and a clip from Tulsi, and I chose the Kennedy one because it's a little bit longer and has a little bit more information. But both of them made this same point about the Trump transition team.
I've talked to Donald Trump specifically about this, and he said to me, I said, look, the last time you were in there, you put John Bolton in charge of NSA and Mike Pompeo in charge of the CIA and then the State Department, and you put an oil guy, in charge of Department of Interior, a coal guy in charge of EPA, and a telecom lobbyist in charge of FCC, and pharma lobbyist as head of HHS and FDA, Scott Gottlieb. And he said, here's the difference. He said, when I got in last time, I had no idea how to govern, and I got surrounded by donors and corporate people who said, you appoint this guy and appoint that guy. And he said, I appointed a lot of bad people. Now, I was listening this morning to this extraordinary interview that Donald Trump did with Joe Rogan yesterday. And he said during that interview, he talked specifically about John Bolton. He said, a donor got me to appoint him. And he said, he's a great guy. He turned out, and this is what he said. He said, he's a really bad guy. And he said, this time, I'm not going to do that. He told us that. And what he did, he didn't just promise that, but he did something no other president's done before. Normally, the transition team is not created until November 6th because GAO, the General Accounting Office, pays for all the costs of the transition team. Trump said, I'm not going to do it this time. I'm not going to do it their way. I'm going to start my own transition team 3 months early. And he got private donors.
He got private donors. I wonder where the money came from to fund his transition team.
He got private donors to fund it, and he's appointed 20 people, including me and Tulsi. And, there's people of all different kinds of ideology and people we're going to have to go up against on that transition team and fight for our vision. But I can tell you this, which is unique, there are no corporate lobbyists on that campaign, on that transition team. And usually it's 100% corporate lobbyists. So it's very, very different, and it gives me lots of hope that this government is going to be different than any government we've ever seen.
I would watch the
to
hell
Donald Trump
out of a reality show on Trump's transition team. Like, so he says he's got a bunch of different people from a bunch of different ideologies, and they're all going to have to kind of duke it out. So basically, Trump has kind of done the thing from Dark Knight with Joker, where he breaks the pool cue, and he's like, "All right, you guys fight it out. Best man wins." I would imagine like a Hard Knocks style docuseries on that. I would watch the hell out of it. It would be so good. Ian Carroll says, Matt, my Trump supporter friends are blackpilling and saying that they will steal the election. What should I do? And then he said, so far I told them black pillars get the curb. I don't know if that worked. Well, good. That's good that the black pillars get the curb. And then just tell them to frickin' vote. Tell them to go do it. Doesn't cost them anything but a few minutes. Just go vote. And then see what happens. Oinks in the chat. Oinks in the chat for Pig Dirk. Shout out to Pig Dirk. Today, what was Pig Dirk doing earlier? He made too big of a poop and clogged the toilet, so we needed to go clean the toilet out with mops. That was my task today. Oinks in the chat. So I've played you guys a few of the ads that have come out of the RFK campaign, and I really strongly recommend listening to Nicole Shanahan when she talked with Tucker Carlson. She appeared with him on one of Tucker Carlson's tours. and go listen to it on X, because she talks about some of the V words and says stuff that would get it taken down on YouTube. And so it's censored on the YouTube version of it. Go listen to it on X. You get a real clear view about who she is. This is Mama Bear, who has had absolutely enough and is ready to go scorched earth. And they've been cranking out some really good ads. I've got 2 of them here. It says Nicole Shanahan's parting gift to the Democrats is a knife in their backs. And remember, Nicole Shanahan, she was a major Democratic donor for a long time. She was married to Sergey Brin.
In 2016, the Democratic Party was coming off an 8-year high of ruling American politics. 8 years prior, Barack Obama had burst onto the scene as an unstoppable force, defeating John McCain in a landslide victory. With his cool, calm, charismatic charm, he quickly became one of the most popular presidents in recent history. He promised health care for all, passed Wall Street reform, and took out bin Laden. As his presidency was winding down, Democrats knew they needed another sure thing to keep their party going. So who did they turn to? Hillary Rodham Clinton. The former First Lady, New York Senator, and Secretary of State would enable the Democrats to nominate the first female president in American history. And to make things even sweeter, they'd be running against this guy. The Democrat elite's plan to retain power was all coming together, except for one little thing.
1, 2, you know what to do. Feel the burn. Feel the burn.
That's right. A previously little-known senator from Vermont had started a populist movement that was taking over the country. He went from an unknown to a bona fide folk hero almost overnight. The Hillary team started to get nervous as his popularity grew. So what did they do? They cheated. As the Democrat elite transitioned from Obama to Clinton, there was a minor problem within the Democratic Party. At the end of his presidency, Obama had left the party $24 million in debt, $15 million owed to the bank, and more than $8 million owed to vendors from his 2012 campaign. Simply put, the DNC was broke and had no funds leading up to the 2016 election. That was until a friendly donor swooped in to bail him out. And you know who that was? You guessed it, the Hillary Clinton Victory Fund. In an unprecedented move, the Clinton campaign bought out the DNC's debt and gave them millions of dollars in loans to keep them afloat. They now had the power to hold the DNC hostage on the loans they had given them. The Victory Fund that was supposed to be for whoever the Democratic nominee was had now become a fund solely for Clinton. And what did she do? She used it all, of course. From the $82 million, only 1% was allocated for other down-ballot candidates like Bernie. The Bernie campaign soon realized the vast money laundering scheme was a calculated strategy to throw the nomination to Hillary. And that's exactly what happened. Even with hijacking all of the campaign funds, the popular vote showed Bernie neck and neck with Clinton and enough delegates secured to win the election. In their final act against the will of the people, the DNC used the power of their superdelegates, arbitrary voters who can select whoever they choose. 438 of those superdelegates voted for Sanders, while 676 went to Clinton. The Democrat elite had successfully subverted the will of the people and cheated their way to a Clinton nomination. And the worst part? They would go on to do it again and again and again.
The Clinton campaign did rig the presidential nominating process. Very quickly, Senator, do you agree with the notion that it was rigged?
Yes. We now have black and white evidence that the FBI interfered in the 2016 election.
Front pages of the New York Times, Democratic establishment very nervous Bernie Sanders to win the whole. We were doing very well in the polls, and they said Bernie shouldn't be the candidate for a variety of reasons. We don't want him the candidate. Drop out.
Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States.
It was the CIA this time that got involved in the 2020 election.
President Biden had people within his White House ordering the social media sites to censor me and to deplatform me 37 hours after he took the oath of office.
The former president of the United States, now a convicted felon.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is.
Was that supposed to be a lab line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is.
Seems like the only thing that the Trump and Biden campaigns can agree on is they don't want you on the debate stage.
If Fox News lets me on the stage for the debate, I will win the election.
My president, my commander-in-chief, is targeting me as a potential domestic terrorist.
So you see Bobby Kennedy out there, they won't even give him Secret Service protection, which is just
fucking egregious.
First, we had the letter from the President of the United States saying that he was going to step aside in this race.
The President, in a tweet, just announcing that he is offering his full support and endorsement for Kamala Harris to be the nominee.
I really believe Kamala is an illegitimate candidate. You know, she didn't run in the primary. They didn't have an open convention.
There's almost a 0% chance she would have been the nominee if Joe Biden had said, we're going to have an open primary. Kamala would have gotten beaten.
A judge ruled that independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s name should not appear on New York's ballot.
To have this judge try to prevent you, the people, from voting for this candidate at a time when we're told democracy is at stake and that the Democrats are the ones that are going to rescue it, they're the people trying to keep him off the ballot. It's sick.
If you give a government license to silence its critics, it now has license for any atrocity.
Take yourself out of whatever frame you're in right now and put yourself in the frame of the FanDuel Americans. The overwhelming majority of Joe Rogan's listenership. This is absolutely crushing. This is brutal. This reminds me of the prediction that Jason and I have both made that the Democrats are cooked. They're not just losing an election. The Democrats are being moved to the outer party. They are becoming the outer party. Republicans are the inner party now, and probably will be so for, I'd say, probably a decade at least. All the cool people are moving to the Republicans. All the insufferable, annoying people that nobody likes and nobody wants to listen to are digging in with the Democrats. And now you have all of the most prominent ex-Democrats who are just absolutely twisting the knife. Here's another one that they made about Kamala. This is from the MAHA Alliance.
Dear Kamala Harris, let's get one thing crystal clear. The vast majority of American men have no issue with electing a female president.
I think you got to admit that that's objectively true. That the vast majority of American men would have no problem with a female president.
Our issue lies solely with you. You were second in charge of California for 13 years.
As California's Attorney General, Harris promoted enforcement of a law that allowed prosecutors to seek jail time for parents of truant kids.
As a prosecutor and law enforcement, I have a huge stick. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy.
I thought that was crazy. I was like, how can you lock parents up?
If you don't go to school, Kamala's going to put you and me in jail. Yes, we achieved intended effect.
I opened the door and I see at least 7 or 8 cops like wanted to arrest me. As a matter of fact, they did.
And frankly, you know the prosecutors in my office who volunteered to do this? My homicide prosecutors, my gang prosecutors. And they went over there and I said, when you go over there, look really mean.
She had me arrested and prosecuted because my handicapped daughter was sick in the hospital and had missed some days of school.
I learned that with the swipe of my pen, I could charge someone with the lowest level offense. That person could be arrested, they could lose time from work, and their family maybe lose their job. They'd have to come out of their own pocket to help hire a lawyer. They'd lose standing in their community.
I lost my job and couldn't pay rent, and we got evicted.
Weeks later, I could dismiss the charges, but their life would forever be changed.
I became homeless. We had to move into a motel.
All because of the swipe of my pen.
I don't agree what Kamala Harris did to my mom, and I don't agree with what she's done to other parents as well.
She is evil, evil. Look at the glee in her eyes, cackling about sending her murder prosecutors after parents of truant kids. Explicitly saying that she figured out she could rig the system, rig the justice system against weak people who couldn't do anything about it. This is 2.8 million views.
You were second in charge of the United States for 4 years.
If anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Inflation is hitting the highest level in 39 years. A record high number of illegal crossings.
Crime's been surging across the nation.
Huge spikes in homicides.
Could we be heading toward World War III?
After 17 years of failed leadership, you are now asking us to trust you as first in charge of our country.
I am concerned and focused on big issues. Elementary and middle school truancy is actually a big issue. If we're trying to save the state money because of truancy,
If we're trying to save the state money, my God.
California public schools lose $1.4 billion a year in funding. I want money.
My message to all Americans, do not trust Kamala Harris.
As men and protectors of women and children, you are simply a risk we are not willing to take.
Paid for by MAHA Alliance and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Man. Like, I don't know where else this is getting published. Like,
Dear Kamala
I don't
Harris,
know if they can put a 3-minute ad on television anywhere. But holy crap. Just an absolute, one of the most brutal ads you've ever seen against a politician. Yeah. Is it any surprise that Democrat voter enthusiasm is down? All right, 2 more. Both Elon focused. Elon Musk on what it's like to be the richest man in the world.
How does it feel? I mean, it's kind of a strange thing because I guess, like, I'm still very much like a technologist who, like, you know, I just work a lot, you know. And then my recreational activity is hanging out with friends and family and playing video games, which is, yeah, exactly. I play Diablo or other video games. You know, it's like I don't have like any yachts or holiday homes or anything. So I guess if I was to maybe live a more hedonistic life and you know, had like yachts and islands or something like that, then it would make more. I don't know, maybe that would be more. I don't know, but that's not my idea of fun though, because I'm like, you know, if I go to sit on the beach, then I'm like, this is boring. Now what am I supposed to do now? You know. So I just like building things, and I like being productive and doing useful things and making cool products. And
Our autist.
I mean, I'd also do like hanging out with friends and family and stuff, but. You know, I'm not like saying how can I sort of build a bigger yacht or anything like that. I don't have a boat or anything like that. So, of course I still love you. Yeah, of course I still love you. Oh, you're right. I do have boats. What are you talking for? Yes, there's a boat. SpaceX has these ships that are for the rocket lands on. You know, so I guess technically I do own boats.
Oh yeah, I don't have a yacht. I have boats that my rockets land on. Such a flex.
Yeah. So I stand corrected. Thank you. Yeah. Maybe I should like go sort of sailing around in one of them or something. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Mark Andreessen says, true story. I once offered Elon use of a vacation house for a week to decompress. He responded 5 minutes later. I don't take vacations. Someone pointed out that this is something, he says, yeah, sounds about right. Like Trump, he seems to have endless stamina. Who needs vacations when you're already living on your own terms? Someone pointed out that this is effectively Elon is running for president in a sense. There's kind of a shadow president element to what he's doing. And I think that the relationship between he and Trump is definitely, from both of their perspectives, Trump is the alpha, but because Elon's not an alpha. Elon's like the definition of a sigma. But they end up going together really well. All right, last one. Someone suggested that I make this the new outro. I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm not ready to replace Hulk. But when I do, this is a great candidate. This is from Beach Boy 007, Chris Winnig, one of our guys, very much one of our guys. And he got it tweeted out by Elon. You guys ready? You got to strap in. This is a wild ride.
This election, I think, is going to decide the fate of America and the fate of Western civilization.
And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
If you try to kill our citizens, we will kill you. If you spill a drop of American blood, we will spill a gallon of yours.
If you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you.
The fact is, and I'll say it now, you have to get him the hell out. You have to get him out. We will make America great again.
Vril maxed. Vorpal Anvil says it's really as stark how much one side understands marketing versus the other. No kidding. No kidding. Shout out to our guy, Chris Winnig. Go follow him. Chris, W-I-N-I-G. Got a nig in there, huh? All right, guys. Well, that was one of the longer ones. I still kept it under 3 hours. I didn't think I was going to. But I'll be back tomorrow for another episode of the ASTROLABE. Follow me on Twitter, @RealKingPilled. Please hit the like button. We're at 87. We need 13 more to hit 100. That'd give us 5 days in a row hitting 100 likes in the middle of the stream. Yeah, it was my Howard Dean scream. Gimme likes. Give me likes. You can also support the show if you like what I'm doing here, and you would like to send over a little cash so that I can keep doing it on a regular basis. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled. You can either send a little bit there. You can subscribe and send a regular amount. We very much appreciate that. The best way that you could support the show is by going to kingpill.com, signing up, becoming a member of the Kingpill Discord, become one of the elites. And as I vamp a little bit longer, we need 5 more likes. We're at 95. Can I get 96? As I vamp a little bit longer, be on the lookout. I'll be doing a stream with Jason Miranchuk. We're doing a Friend or Fed, and the roster is going to be star-studded. I'm very honored to be included among the list of guys that are going to be there. I believe it's going to be on Wednesday night. So 2 more days. Go follow Miranchuk now on Twitter. Subscribe to Miranchuk now on YouTube. Got 97 likes. We need 3 more. We got guys in the chat. Wit says join the Discord. Taylor says join the Discord, brothers. Axios, join the Discord. Fight, win. If you join at the Lord or the King tier, you become one of the elite elites. Then you get access to the 5 free training templates from Axios Fitness Coaching. You can also go down and click the link in the description or the link in the live chat right now and complete the intake survey and see what Axios can do for you to get you guys physique maxing. Come on, guys. 3 more likes. I just need 3 more. There's 125 people watching right now. I just need 3 more likes and I can go pee. I've got to pee so bad right now. Don't do this to me. Don't make me sit here and hold it in any longer. I can't take it. You're gonna make me tell the story about my dog getting sprayed by a skunk on Sunday morning. I'm gonna go into all the detail on that. And all you got to do is just hit the like button. Just hit the like button. I need 3 more of you. We're at 97. 3 more likes. 2 more. We're at 98. 2 more likes, and I give you Hulk. Come on. Don't make me tell the skunk story. You don't want to hear the skunk story. It's not that interesting. 2 more likes. One more like. Come on. One more. Just give me, there it is. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow. Be on the lookout for the master thread. I'm going to tweet out all 50 something tabs that I had today at Real King Pilled. Master thread will come out a little bit later this evening. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
They're my hero. And they tried to kill the next president of the United States.